Can the Philadelphia Eagles get back on track after a couple of rough weeks? And who will win the AFC powerhouse battle between the Chargers and the Colts? The Ultimate NFL Pregame Show starts right now.
It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Every team, every game, every angle. The local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network going head-to-head on every matchup. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Unprecedented insight, unrivaled passion, and unsurpassed knowledge. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. The Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Week 7 of the NFL season is officially here. And we've got everything you need to know heading into the weekend from the local experts across the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher, and from the big prime time game between the Falcons and the 49ers to that big 4 o'clock window matchup between the Colts and the Chargers to why that game between the Eagles and the Vikings might have more weight in the NFC than people might think. We're going to go game by game to make you the most informed fan for game day. Appreciate everybody for being here. Crazy, we're already a third of the way through the NFL season. Feels like yesterday we just got everything kicked off. We're going to go again game by game. We're going to get all the previews, breakdowns, and so much more from our local experts across the Locked On Podcast Network. We're going to start with the 9:30 game between the Rams and the Jaguars abroad. The Rams coming off a big win against the Baltimore Ravens. And meanwhile, the Jaguars, they didn't have a great game against the Seahawks in week number 6. So you have Travis Rogers of Locked On Rams and Tony Wiggins of Locked On Jaguars taking you through everything you need to know.
It's time to talk about the winning formula. What do the Jaguars and Rams have to do? I'll go beauty before age, or you're the guest, I'm the home team. So I'll let you go ahead and go first since I'm the old geezer in here. There you go. Tell me what y'all got to do to win.
You see this here too, Tony, right? Like we both got a little white in our beard, so it's we're all good. We've earned it, right? We've earned this the hard way. I've heard you mention your kids a few times. I know that feeling, and yeah. That adds to all of this. I'll bring it full circle. If the Rams make their kicks, they're in really good shape. If the Rams can figure out a way to have clean special team operations, then I think they're in a good spot. Even if Puka is unable to go, because Kyren Williams is having a really good year. If he doesn't fumble, they again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You know, they beat San Francisco, and it doesn't matter that they missed a couple of kicks, but Kyren Williams leads the league in fumbles since 2023. He's put the ball on the ground 10 times. They've lost 7 of them. So, that's not a bad day or two. That means you're a fumbler. And so that's always going to be something that you deal with him. But I keep coming back to the special teams. If they make their kicks, they're in really good shape. If they convert in the red zone, that's another thing that we haven't talked about a lot, that the Rams have kind of stalled when they've got inside the 20-yard line, and they've had to try some kicks. They've made some, they've missed some others, but they need to score touchdowns. There's a video that was going around on social media about Puka kind of getting into a bunch of his teammates on offense about their red zone production and how they need to do better down there, because they really get and again, this kind of goes back to another thing we talked about. McVay gets a little pass happy as the field gets short, and that's always one of those, man, what are we doing here? You've got a really good back in Kyren Williams. You've got another good back in Blake Corum. For whatever reason, Williams isn't available. You've got a guy that no person on earth can cover in Devontae Adams, and yet we're doing some weird play calls down there. So special teams obviously is always an X factor, and then converting those red zone trips into touchdowns.
Hey, man, I'm going to be transparent here. I said I was up in Raleigh when y'all played that Thursday night. Yeah, I had a little scratch on the Rams, and I was totally upset with what they were doing. And everything you just described, the short yardage situations, when they're going for it, the kicking game, all of that stuff came into play. And unfortunately, the Jaguars have had kicking problems. They missed an extra point and a field goal last week. Little Cam Little made a 70-yarder in preseason, and he made all of his kicks last year, and I actually drafted him like 9th in my fantasy draft. And I'm sitting there like, I'm going to see little Cam. We're going to have a little talk. But there's not the confidence in that kicking game that we had. We got all-pro punter. He got out-punted last week by the dude from Seattle. So it's like none of that stuff has worked. And then even though we do have one punt return, we've given up a lot of yardage on kick return. So the special teams is super, super important. I'm wondering if the student is going to try to get too fancy.
Yeah.
Because he wants to impress the teacher. And this is a natural thing to do. Two guys that know each other very, very well. They understand the weaknesses. They understand the strengths. So for me, I'm going to get real cliche when I say this. To me, it's going to come down to what you talked about, special teams. It's going to come down to who doesn't turn the ball over. And then it's going to come down to execution. They know each other, like two people that's been married for a long time. I forget my blood pressure medicine, and my wife goes, here you go. I knew you were going to forget. It's just like, that's what it is. So it just comes down to, I believe, who does what they're trying to do best and who doesn't make those mistakes. Commit turnovers. By the way, the Jaguars lead the league in taking the ball from other teams, so watch out for that.
Yeah, it's interesting because of that. Like you mentioned, the student and the teacher dynamic that's going to be at play here. McVay, you look at, and he and Kyle Shanahan worked together. One person never really worked for the other, but that's been a puzzle that's been difficult for Sean McVay to solve, is the 49er puzzle. It's been better of late, but that's been something that, if you're just kind of doing a percentage, that's been probably 60-40 towards the Niners. The one team that McVay has not figured out at all are the Green Bay Packers, and that's Matt LaFleur, somebody that worked for Sean McVay. And Matt LaFleur, and again, Packers have really good players. That helps a great deal, but it isn't the student-teacher thing has kind of gone both ways for the Rams. The Rams, he's beaten some of his guys, but some of his pupils have had his number along the way, so we'll see which side of the fence that Cohen falls on.
Yeah, man, we're going to have to see. All right, prediction time. I'm not going to tell you who's going to win, but I'm going to tell you it's going to end up 23-21. How about that? Right. And one of these teams going to make a kick. So that might lean towards the Jaguars. I heard you
say, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Yeah. I like those numbers. I might go. The Rams are scoring points. They didn't do last week. It was a weird week against Baltimore. That was just a weird game. But Baltimore was missing everybody, and the Rams kind of took their foot off the gas. I don't expect that to happen again. I wanted to ask you this too, because the Rams haven't been to London in a long time. This is their first trip overseas in a long time. Do those games always get? Because I feel like when I watch them, they're kind of meh. They don't. There's not a lot of dynamic offense in those games. Am I remembering that correctly?
No. You're spot on with it. And then it's the grass. I lived in Europe for 3 years. It's always foggy. It's kind of like Seattle a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's always kind of wet a little bit. But the Jaguars usually have an advantage because they sometimes play even 2 games over there. And they started this London trek. They were the first team because of Shad Khan's business dealings away from football. They were the first ones to do it. Now everybody wants to do it because they realize how good it is for them. But the thing is, there used to be this advantage. Here's the difference. This is a new staff. These are a whole bunch of new players. So when you start swapping people out like that, the only advantage you have is maybe a logistic one from the people who are in the building, the PR staff and the back office people that really know how to move and when to eat and when to do things. I would think that they have a little bit bigger advantage because they're only making a 6-hour difference. Y'all are making like a 9-hour difference. So that's a big deal when it comes to it. The Jags left Monday. When did you guys leave?
Well, so the Rams stayed in Baltimore after they played the Ravens last week. So they just kind of set up camp there. They worked out there all week. They're going to leave on Friday. So they're going to. That's how they've kind of done all of these longer trips. They go in the day before, they sleep, they get up, they play, and they come home. So Sean McVay's been pretty good at traveling west to east, but this is a little bit different. The one time that he's gone over there before, he had some success, but. This is a different group. This is a group that is still kind of trying to find its way and has not looked like a Ram team typically does. So I like your prediction. I think that the Rams will probably score 27, 28 points somewhere along the way. But I don't like your prediction, Tony, when it comes down to whether or not it's a kick, because that already made me queasy thinking about it because they haven't lined up for a kick all season and I felt good about.
Check out Travis over at Locked On Rams and Tony over at Locked On Jaguars, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Plenty of great 1 p.m. slate games on the docket here. Let's start off with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. The Eagles, a bit of a rough stretch right now, have lost their last 2 games, including on Thursday night to the New York Giants. The Vikings coming off of their bye week, hoping to pick up a big win. And Louis DiBiase of Locked On Eagles and Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings take you through key storylines, key matchups, and so much more.
All right, Louis, the rubber's meeting the road here. So I think that this game can be characterized. Correct me if you think I'm wrong. But I think this game can be characterized as 2 teams that are underachieving their talent, and who can figure out how to realize their potential becomes the winner here.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think that's certainly the case for the Philadelphia Eagles. Because again, there's a lot of things in a post-Super Bowl season that they're dealing with, and they've lost a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, including Isaiah Rodgers, who they could really use a corner right now. But still on paper, this is one of the deeper, more talented teams in the NFL. You can make the argument still the best roster put together in the NFL. They've won 4 games. They are 4-2. So it really is just about getting rid of the self-inflicted wounds. They're atop the league in personal foul, unnecessary roughness calls and unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. They need to get that under wraps. And then things are normally great at. They were so good all of last year in the second half of just putting a stranglehold on teams when they have a lead. And this year they've been one of the worst second half offenses in the entire NFL. So it's just a lot of uncharacteristic struggles from this football team. And this is a gut check game. I said that on the show the other day because you're 4-2. You've dropped 2 games straight. Are you going to let this kind of be like 2023 where you just can't stop the bleeding and you collapse? Or is it like last year after that Tampa blowout loss in week 4? After the bye week, you went on a 10-game win streak and it completely changed your season. This is kind of, you're at a crossroads in this year. Which version of the Eagles you're going to be? So it's on the road. It's not an easy test against, like you said, a talented Vikings roster on both sides and good coaching. So I'm really intrigued what version of the Eagles you're going to get, because if it's that dead dog walk-in they got on Thursday against the Giants, they're not coming out of that game with a win.
You could tell the timing was off and the energy was off.
Oh, yeah.
I remember thinking
everything
I've
was
never
off.
seen the Eagles in the second half be this passive, the way the defense was.
That's the right word. It's passive.
Physicality.
They're not going for the kill. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and so here's the interesting thing, and this is gonna maybe not make any listeners happy on either side of this, but this is gonna be a 60-minute contest if what you're saying about the second half Eagles is true, because the Vikings have been abysmal in the first halves. They have fallen into a hole in 4 of 5 games, and they won 2 of those. They came back with big fourth quarters against the Bears and the Browns, but they took a long time to figure out how to walk in those games. And then in the other ones, they didn't come back. I mean, Atlanta, they died, and the Steelers, they made a comeback effort, but it was too little too late. So they have struggled a lot. I mean, they have had 4 of 5 games. They've had 6 or less points going into halftime. I mean, it's nasty. Can't score a touchdown. The only game where they have had a hot start was the Bengals collapsing in front of them with Jake Browning, and that feels difficult to give them too much credit for, considering that kind of everybody's had their way with them. So if what you're saying is true, I do see that this is a game where the Eagles get out to a lead, and then it comes down to, can they finally figure out how to put their throat on somebody, or do the Vikings do the comeback thing again? Well,
when you look at, that's been the tail of the tape since that Rams comeback in the second half. The Tampa Bay game, they were incredible in the first half on offense throwing the football. They didn't complete a single pass in the second half. Then against Denver, they blew a 17-3 lead in the second half after that Saquon Barkley touchdown. Jalen Hurts completely collapsed. And then last week against the Giants on Thursday Night Football, Jalen threw that pick. He missed Devontae Smith on a wide open touchdown that could have put the game on ice. I mean,
before you know it, you're down.
Right. It goes hand in hand. It's not a coincidence they're struggling to run the football and they're a bad second half offense. Because last year they would put together these 7 to 10 minute drives, kill an entire quarter of clock, and just put their foot on your throat. And that's the thing, is the passing game is too passive right now. So if the run game's not going to put a team down, Jalen's not doing it with his arm because he's not playing aggressive enough. So they either need to be more up front with their passing game and trying to put the game away in the second half, or the run game, Saquon needs to be able to take over. It's got to be one of the two, and they're getting neither right now. So that's why teams are able to hang around. And Minnesota has enough talent to get back into this football game, I think, regardless of who's the quarterback, if you let them. And the secondary, again, if Quignon's banged up, then that's kind of a mismatch again, like it was against an inferior Giants opponent on Thursday night.
Yeah, it very much could be. And seeing what the Giants and their kind of a decimated, obliterated receiving core, right? Like they had Wan'Dale Robinson, who's having a good year, and then like a whole bunch of like
it was like Lil Jordan Humphrey.
Yeah, it was like guys that are on their 9th team or guys that you'd never heard of. And so you compare that to what the Vikings have. Addison is a stud. Justin Jefferson is best in the world. You've got TJ Hawkinson as an outlet for Carson Wentz. There's been a rapport there as well. And so if you just look at the matchups, you're like, oh, who covers all these guys? But that's not what FanDuel does. So right. I want to caution people from looking at this and being like, ooh, Adoree Jackson versus Justin Jefferson. Which would harken back to 2022 when they played the Giants and Adoree Jackson was there and Justin Jefferson didn't do anything in that game. Well, that's because they bracketed him the entire game and the Vikings couldn't figure out how to move the ball against too high safety. Well, no, that's not true. They moved the ball a lot. It just wasn't to Jefferson. Mm-hmm. So Jefferson ended up getting like 26 yards in that game and everybody gives Adoree Jackson all these flowers for, shutting him down, but it wasn't really the matchup. It was double teams. So I fully expect the Eagles to do that again. But I do want to, before we sort of wrap this out, I do want to talk about the receivers on the other side. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, they haven't had the seasons that they've wanted. What's going on there? Is there something more that, like, look, you're on the road. If this game goes bad and starts to kind of feel like it is slipping away from the Eagles, could it snowball on them, or am I totally overplaying those locker room issues?
Yeah, I think the locker room issues are definitely overblown. I think this has been a thing for the last 3 years that's talked about. I don't want to say it's not a problem at all, but for me, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, them not being involved in these games, I think it's a direct result of Jalen Hurts' inconsistent play. His inaccuracy issues. I think he's missed both of those guys on game-winning touchdowns in back-to-back football games. And then I think when you look at Kevin Patullo, the passing concepts have just been so vanilla. And that's the thing is, like, Smith and Brown don't really need a lot of help getting open, but the scheme is not setting them up to succeed whatsoever. So I don't think any of this has to do with Brown and Smith struggling in a vacuum. It's on Patullo and Hurts. Like, those guys are holding back these star receivers, and they need to get going, or else Brown and Smith aren't going to get going.
It's so interesting. Like, oh, really? A very overly simplistic scheme that everybody is. Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz, they're the same guy. Really.
It's infuriating seeing the next day the route graphic that Next Gen Stats puts up, and Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. It's like the same line, like every single play. Huh? Yeah, it's the worst. So the scheme's not helping, and Jalen's just been very uncharacteristically inconsistent in the second half. So, but when it comes to like the inside locker room drama, I really don't think there is much to do with it right now.
From an emotional standpoint, it felt like that Giants game got away from them emotionally.
Yeah,
but that's I'm reading body language and like, who am I? Like, I'm
absolutely
on his couch. Like,
but again, I don't think there's like this T.O. McNabb beef between Devontae and Jalen or AJ. I think there's frustration between the two for sure. Their relationship has changed, but I don't think you're going to see a trade request before the deadline. Or this happened last year, and then they went on a Super Bowl run. So I've been there, done that with this football team. So I'll believe it when I see it from that perspective.
So every crossover, I've forgotten to do this a bunch, so every other crossover it's been more like, but I've been asking for a bold prediction. This is something that I do on my show. Every Friday we do bold predictions. I would love to put you in there. If you are correct, I will donate $20 to a charity of your choice.
Ooh.
And I've been giving out 3 free months of my Patreon page, patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. You can just be, Louis, you can just have it if you want. But I'll give it to like a listener or something. There is actually a video breaking down every single tush push that the Eagles have run so far is on that page. So
that's incredible.
You guys want to see that? I mean, there's a lot more intrigue and nuance. I've done a ton of tush push content this week. I wrote a big article. I did that big video, and there's a lot more nuance to what's going on, what is working, what's working less than it did before, and outside of the should it be banned like Mike Florio conversation. But do you have a bold prediction that I can add to my pool?
Yeah. For the game, I'll say Josh Uche has 2 sacks, including the game winner in the fourth quarter. I think somebody's got to step up for the Eagles as a pass rusher. I think this could be a solid matchup. Uche's been their most consistent edge rusher this year from a pass rush win rate perspective. I think he gets 2 sacks in this game, including the game winner in the fourth quarter. He doesn't have a sack all year, so I'd put it on the bolder side. I think Uche's the hero on Sunday in Minnesota.
Uche is the hero. That could come in. So one of the other injury things that we probably should mention is Brian O'Neill, who is dealing with a sprained MCL, limited in practice. So he returned to practice this week in a limited capacity, but we'll see if that's just a ramp up or if he's really ready to play.
You can check out Louie over at Locked On Eagles, and you can check out Luke over at Locked On Vikings, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Next up, the AFC East leading New England Patriots take on the Mike McCoy-led Tennessee Titans. The Titans fire Brian Callahan, Mike McCoy now at the helm. Storylines galore in this one. Nick Cattles of Locked On Patriots and Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans talk about everything in this game that needs to be looked at.
All right, speaking of the impossible, I think the Tennessee Titans are in a tough spot with getting a win, and that's why when we go to the keys to victory here and what has to happen for each team to win the game, for me, I look at the Titans, and they got to go with the classic underdog playbook, Nick. They have to win time of possession, run the football, and keep the ball out of Drake May's hands because he's going to create explosive plays. They need to win the turnover battle, and that's something that, you look at the Patriots in the games where they've lost this year, it's mostly been because they had major turnover issues. So it's not completely unrealistic for the Titans to think, hey, we could potentially win here. Like their 2 losses on the year, they tied the turnover battle. Their other loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 5 turnovers and still only lost by 7 points. Probably a better team than the Steelers, if we're honest. But if the Titans don't win the turnover battle, which feels like they haven't since Denver week 1, and Cam Ward, every time he gets hit, he fumbles, and tip passes at the line of scrimmage are going to be big this week. The Patriots are going to be all over that. Mike Vrabel is going to see how many tip passes Cam Ward has had. The Titans need to win the time of possession battle. They need to win the turnover battle, and I think they need something crazy to happen. They need like a kickoff return for a touchdown or a punt block or a field goal block. They need something crazy like that to happen to beat a team that is better than them on paper and better than them overall. So they're going to need the classic underdog playbook to be able to win this one.
Yeah, if I'm Mike Vrabel, if I'm Zach Core, who has replaced Terrell Williams due to prostate cancer as the defensive coordinator and the play caller on Sundays, my number one priority defensively is to put this game completely on Cam Ward. Put it all on the rookie quarterback. Keep shutting down the run. The Patriots have been one of the best run defenses in football, and they've really done it against some good offenses as far as running the ball, right? We see what Carolina's doing running the ball. Last weekend, Rico Dowdle loses his mind and goes off. The Patriots shut down James Cook in Buffalo on Sunday night. So their run defense has been very good to the point where I don't want to take it for granted, but I almost feel like you walk in every week and you feel pretty good that a team's not going to be able to run over you. So if you can shut down the run or at least limit the run significantly and force this game into the hands of Cam Ward, you get the rookie quarterback with the interim head coach. It'll be interesting to see if Tennessee changes anything. You mentioned some of the offensive things that you think they should be doing. We'll see if they do it. Your turnover point is a good one. And look, Drake May, the best thing about Drake May's 2025 so far is that he's practically cut his turnover-worthy play rate in half from last season to this season. And the last few games, he has not put the ball in harm's way. You go back to the loss against Pittsburgh, you mentioned it, 5 turnovers, 2 by Drake. So one of them was, in the red zone, in the end zone with a pick, and then he had the fumble, carelessly holding the football. So I agree. They got to take care of the ball. The other thing for the Patriots, I think, is that they've got to finish drives. And Tennessee's defense hasn't been great, but they are 12th in the NFL in red zone defense. So they've done a pretty good job of limiting teams finding pay dirt when they hit the red area. The Patriots, middle of the pack offensively in the red zone, they're 17th in the league. So, you look at last week's game, Tyler, against the Raiders. The Patriots get the ball inside the 5 after a Drake May scramble, and it's a bleep show. The first play is a run for about 1 yard. The second play is a run, falls apart because the offensive line, they lose 3 yards. Then Drake May inexplicably gets a delay of game, which pushes it out to the 9-yard line, and they run a safe screen to Stephon Diggs that gets 3 yards, and they kick a field goal. So if the Patriots can finish drives and put some points on the board, that's even more pressure on Cam Ward.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you talk about Cam Ward, to go along with the underdog playbook, the Titans got to find a way to hit some big plays. Right now, the Patriots are the worst defense in the NFL in yards per attempt. So when the Patriots pass defense does give up things, they're giving up big plays down the field. And the yards after catch is a big thing as well. So the Titans have to find a way to hit some shots down the field. And likewise, on the other side of it, the Titans' yards per attempt is terrible. Like, the passing game has been awful. Even on defense, they haven't been good with that. So I am worried about the deep passing. And I think to add to some of the stuff that I said earlier, you're going to need, if you're the Titans, you're going to need to hit some deep passes and get some major chunk plays, because you're not going to be able to grind it out against this defense, like you said, with the run defense. That's just simply not going to happen. So the Titans are going to have to find a way to get some deep passing going, something that they've really struggled with throughout the year. Who in the secondary right now? I know Christian Gonzalez has come back here. Who in the secondary has been struggling, and who do you think they can rely on to play well?
Well, I think some of the early issues, the first game, some of those stats are just crippled by the first game against the Raiders, when the Patriots gave up nine plays of 20-plus yards in that game against the Raiders and Geno Smith. They've had their trouble. Last week, first play of the game, they blitzed Carlton Davis, and Carlton Davis, pretty much with the speed of the Tin Man, can't get to the quarterback, and that leaves Kyle Duggar one-on-one against Chris Olave, which nobody wants, probably including Kyle Duggar, and Spencer Rattler hits Olave for 50-plus yards. So Jalen Hawkins did not practice on Wednesday. He's been a starting safety. He was out last week. If you want big plays, I think you try to get matchups against Kyle Duggar, who has struggled mightily, especially the past couple of years, in coverage and giving up big plays over the top. So the other safety is Craig Woodson. He had some issues early because he's a rookie, but he's improving, and I think he actually played pretty well last weekend. Gonzalez is a game changer. It's interesting, the Patriots don't really let Gonzalez travel with the best receiver, so they've pretty much stuck to sides. Last week, they played a lot of zone against Rattler. I don't know what they're going to do this weekend against Cam Ward. I will say, there's kind of two thoughts here. You can either try to play man against the questionable weapons of Tennessee. I'm not really wowed by any of their receivers. So maybe you play man and say, no, we can lock them down and we can devote extra people to the run game and spying on Cam Ward to make sure his legs don't go bananas against us. Or you can play zone and test the patience of the rookie quarterback and hope your pass rush gets home. So I don't really know what they're going to do, but they are better since Christian Gonzalez has been back.
I'll take a guess here, and I say they play more man coverage. The Titans don't have anybody that can beat you in man. It's been a problem for the Titans going before Cam Ward. They haven't had good answers against man coverage. I would bet they play a little bit more man than they normally do this week. But looking forward to the game, Nick. We don't need, exact score predictions, but I have a hard time seeing the Titans pull off this win, even with the fired coach performance bump that you see sometimes. I think the Patriots are just too good, and I have a hard time believing that Mike Vrabel would allow his team to lose this game. I think the Titans fall here to 1-6, and I think the Patriots move to 5-2.
The Patriots should win, will they? I actually wait to give my prediction on my Friday episode, Tyler. So I'm gonna hold it out there. They should win. Everything tells you they should win, but do I think they'll win? I guess Patriots fans, Locked On Patriots listeners, viewers will have to wait until Friday to find out what I think about that.
You can check out Tyler over at Locked On Titans and Nick over at Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Dolphins and Browns. This one is interesting because you have the Browns, who obviously just traded away Joe Flacco. Dylan Gabriel is now their starter, trying to see what they have there. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, feels inevitable that Mike McDaniel will get fired at some point this season. Will it be after this week if the Dolphins can't get it together? Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins, as well as Spencer German of Locked On Browns, talk about those big storylines in this one.
All right, back at it on our crossover episode of Locked On Browns and Locked On Dolphins, getting you ready for kickoff on Sunday. I'll share this now because since I was comparing the Dolphins to the Steelers, I'll just kind of repurpose this and go back to it for a second. But okay. I found this interesting. Both the Dolphins and the Steelers are two of the worst teams in terms of average yards allowed per opponent's drives. The Steelers are 30th. They give up 36.5 yards per opponent drive. The Dolphins are 32nd. They're dead last. They give up 40.7 yards per drive. But, and this is where I think you're going to like this stat, they also are two of the best teams in terms of red zone efficiency. They're actually tied with 50% in terms of holding opponents out of the end zone, which is fourth best in the NFL. I thought that was kind of interesting because it does to me sort of show that the Dolphins defense is, capable of giving up big plays and being sort of moving the football on, but that it seems like when they get down the red zone, they are able to tighten things up. And that's where I think it could be a problem for the Browns because like they've moved the ball a little bit here or there, but it is when they get in that red zone that they have some troubles and they just can't seem to punch it in for touchdowns.
Yeah, it is really eye-opening to kind of look at some of the splits for the Dolphins on a per drive basis. I mean, it's 7 plays over 40 yards per drive, more than 3 points per drive allowed defensively through 6 games. I think I saw it is the lowest percentage of drives with forced punts through 6 games like since the turn of the millennium. It's like that's how long it's been since a team has had less success generating punts. And then when they do generate punts, you have running into the kicker on a 4th and 3 against the Colts in week 1. You're tied at 21 against the Bills in the 4th quarter in week 3, and you rough the punter and they go on score a touchdown like 3 plays later and you lose the game off of that. It's just silly. They had a field goal where you had a personal foul for leveraging the long snapper this past week against the Chargers. It's just little attention to details, right? And I think that's one of the things that drives you nuts about a team where you look at the depth chart and you see Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, a pass rusher, Jordan Brooks at linebacker, Minkah Fitzpatrick at safety, Rasul Douglas has been good at corner. You say, hey, they have some individual talent here. It's the attention to detail. It's all the little things. It's the margins of the game. And that, if you're not a cohesive unit, you're not going to have those things buttoned up, and it continues to bite the Dolphins in these 1-score losses that they continue to roll in. And I expect this is going to be another close game between these two teams on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And it's funny, as you say that, I feel like you're just like preaching to the choir here because it's the same. The Browns are doing it's the same thing with the Browns. Like I watch these games week over week, and it's like, oh, special teams error. Oh, missed tackle here. Oh, penalty here. Oh, drop passes. Offensive line doesn't know who they're supposed to block. It's all those little things. And what's crazy is in the NFL, like so many of these games come down, like you win in the margins. And those are the things that determine the results of games. Like there is Browns fans love going back and pointing to, well, hey, if we just make a kick in week 1 against the Bengals, we have another win. Or if Denzel Ward, drops in coverage or forces Jordan Addison inside in the London game a couple weeks ago on that last play of the game, they beat that team. And so, but it's the fundamental things that are costing both these teams right now. And it's why they're facing off at such an interesting time, as we kind of alluded to in the first segment there. But yeah, the parallels between these two teams right now are so interesting in the wrong way, because, it'd be better if they were like two really good teams and they did a lot of things really well, but it is kind of funny how they're sort of colliding at this almost perfect time in that way. What is, in your opinion, Kyle, the path to victory for the Miami Dolphins on Sunday, knowing they have to go against this really good Browns defense, but that they have some offensive players that can certainly pose a threat? And how do they maybe stop a Browns run game that this could be the week where they finally find something and unlock something there?
Yeah, I think a couple things. Offensively, we talked about the 22 personnel package. I think that's a massive element of what Miami is doing well offensively right now, and that investment in that package, keeping their willingness and appetite to run the football throughout the course of a 60-minute game. Defensively, I'd say 2 things. I'd like to see more odd front looks where you look at that Browns offensive line and those veterans that they have at guard. That entire interior trio is guys that have been successful regardless of how late in their careers, chapter-wise, they are at this point in the game. Covering those guys up, because this is not the kind of back that you want to let get vertical through the first level of the defense with momentum. And that's what Judkins has the ability to really punish you and get your DBs in trouble if he gets through the point of attack. So play a little bit more base. And by extension off of that, I want to take some of the air out of the coverage on the back end, knowing that Dylan Gabriel is a little more risk averse right now as a guy that has that point of emphasis, as a young guy that doesn't want to create turnovers and make mistakes with the football. Run some simulated pressures if you want to, but don't play so far off dare him to read it correctly and work the ball and push the ball with aggressiveness, and let him prove that he's willing to do that. And if he does that, and if he does that with consistency and without mistakes, then you tip your cap and you hope your offense can work you out. But to play super off and say, hey, we're going to be really conservative and have Dylan throw the ball 52 times and have a bunch of completions that are within however many yards of the line of scrimmage like you did against Pittsburgh, like you're just, I think, leaning into what they want to be as an extension of the run game with the short passing game. So I think you have to challenge those throws and force more low percentage throws with how you play them in coverage.
I think that's a good philosophy, honestly, especially when you got a rookie quarterback who, as you said, doesn't want to make those big mistakes. We know he's going to take the easy stuff, but by and large, if the Browns get their run game going, though, I think that does open Dylan up to maybe try some things and take some shots and be a little more risk adverse, which I think is something that he has to probably do a little bit more of at times. I understand protecting the football is super valuable, but let's face it, like the best quarterbacks in this league are the best quarterbacks in this league because sometimes they're not afraid to take those throws that might be tight window that could be an interception. So that's I think one of the things he has to keep working on. But I do think like as you laid out, that is kind of the path forward for Miami. For the Browns, I think I alluded to it already, but they got to get the run game going. This feels like the first time, like there's obviously at this point he has a career day, but this could be like a career game for Quinshon Judkins type performance if they can run as successfully as other teams have against Miami so far this season. And that'd be massive because I think that allows the offense to settle in. And then, I mean, defensively, that 22 personnel that you threw at me, I think is interesting because I didn't necessarily know offhand that that's how much they were utilizing that personnel group. And I worry a little bit about how the Browns handle and defend tight ends because we just saw the Steelers kind of pick them apart using multiple tight end sets. And, you throw in multiple backs now into the mix too. I kind of wonder how they'll handle that. You still have a corner who's still kind of getting acclimated to Cleveland and Tyson Campbell that they just traded for last week. So, can he sort of in another week be a little bit more up to speed on everything? We'll see. But yeah, I think, again, I kind of go into this game feeling as though because the Browns have that one elite unit on defense, that they'll be able to do enough to limit Miami's offense and give the Browns offense a chance. And this feels like one of the first games where the Browns offense might actually be able to do some things. So I'm going into it sitting here as we record this and drop it on our crossover Thursday here, feeling optimistic about the Browns' chances. But like I said, man, like this offense is historically bad. And I just don't know. Like I could wake up Sunday and have a completely different feeling on it because for all I know, they could just lay an egg, and I wouldn't be surprised by that either because it's been so bad.
Yeah, it really is. It's a high variance game, right? And who gets their guys ready to play? And the fact that Cleveland's at home, I think is really helpful for them with Miami and the extra bells and whistles that go into your preparations when you got to travel. And maybe they'll bond on the flight up. Who knows? But it would certainly be sorely needed after what this week has brought for the Dolphins thus far.
No doubt about it. Same for the Browns if they can pull it off. But nonetheless, there will certainly be a lot of things to say after the outcome of this game on Sunday. It's why I dubbed it an important, unimportant game because nobody outside of these two fan bases really probably care. But there is a lot at stake here, I think, in this game overall. Real quick, Kyle, before we sign off here, did you catch in London 2 weeks ago for the Browns the quote from Grant Delpit, who said he was asked to basically describe Cleveland to people in London that weren't familiar with Cleveland, and he jokingly said, "Yeah, it's just like Miami."
Heck yeah, I love Grant too. So that's a gem. I love that.
It was pretty funny, and I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Trainwreck, but I instantly went to the scene in Trainwreck where LeBron is sitting at the table and he's like, "How come you never visit me in Cleveland?" Well, there's no difference between Miami and Cleveland, so I thought that was pretty funny. Anyway, we'll call it the battle for very balmy cities here instead of the battle for who gets fired first.
Check out Spencer over at Locked On Browns and check out Kyle over at Locked On Dolphins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up, we're going to have so much more on the rest of the 1 p.m. slate of games here because there are still so many great storylines to talk about. Stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. October 10th was World Mental Health Day, and this year we're saying thank you, therapists. Life can be tough on and off the field, and behind millions of mental health journeys are therapists who showed up, listened, and helped people take a step forward. BetterHelp is shining the spotlight on those connections while also making it simple for you to find support whenever you need it. Therapy moments can be life-changing, whether it's learning to be better connected with your kids, healing a relationship, or finding healthy ways to manage stress. And I know that when something can be weighing on me, sometimes talking it through can bring clarity and relief. If you ever thought about trying therapy, this is the perfect reminder that help is out there and the right therapist can make all the difference. This World Mental Health Day, join us in celebrating the therapists who've helped millions take a step forward. If you're ready to start your own journey, BetterHelp can help you find the right therapist. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards, Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. My favorite part, PrizePicks just added stacks, so if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one click. The new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. There's a special max discount promotion live on the board right now for the Golden State Warriors versus Los Angeles Lakers game on October 21st. Steph Curry is discounted to only needing more than half a point to win. Mix and match players from football, basketball, and baseball to build your dream lineup today. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Moving along on the Ultimate NFL pregame show, Kevin Allstreicher still here with you, diving into all of Week 7's amazing action that we have on the docket. We talked about the first part of the 1 p.m. slate of games. Let's continue on that 1 p.m. slate track. Let's start off with an AFC West showdown between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs getting back on track a little bit this season. Meanwhile, the Raiders, well, they've had an interesting year so far, to say the least. So your boy Q of Locked On Raiders and Chris Clark and Ryan Tracy of Locked On Chiefs talk about how this one could shape up.
Raider week or rivalry week, however you want to look at it. Kansas City versus the Raiders. Chiefs are going to be hosting this team. It's going to be a lot of fun. Q, when you look at this game, what is a key to victory for you when you look at how the Raiders could beat this Chiefs team?
Two things. They've got to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and they've got to win the turnover battle. Yeah, it's easy, right? Says nobody. But that's what they've got to do. I mean, that's how Patrick Graham's defense is by getting pressure on the quarterback. They were able to do that last week against Tennessee, and that's going back to even the first segment when I said that, it's about building on your successes last week. That's what they have to do. Even though the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes is a different animal than Cam Ward and the Titans, it's the same concept. You have to be able to get pressure on the quarterback, and you have to win the turnover battle. Geno Smith has been turning the ball over quite a bit. The Raiders don't necessarily create too many turnovers. They literally have, 3 interceptions on the season, one by their safety, Isaiah Polamau, one by Devin White, and one by Max Crosby. And that's it, right? And they've got a few fumble recoveries that they've had. But 3 of their turnovers they've created on the season came last week against Tennessee. So it's not like it's something that they do all the time. That's something that they have to find a way to do. They have to try to win the turnover battle. Going back to 2023, when they won on Christmas in Arrowhead, how'd they do it? Turnovers, right? They scored 14 points. Hell, they didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. But because of the run game and because of turnovers, they were able to do that. That's the recipe that this team is, how they're successful, is by playing strong defense. They're built to stop the run, and then they're able to pin their ears back and try to get to the quarterback. So that's going to be the recipe that they try to employ. They've got Devin White. Devin White has had success against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs before, and so he's going to try to interchannel his, former Tampa Bay Super Bowl self. Again, he's older. He hasn't been the same guy, but he's starting to come around. He's leading the team in tackles. So, there's things to like about this Raiders team, but they're not in a position where they can go out there and make mistakes. They have to create some mistakes for the other team. If they do that, they'll give themselves a puncher's chance in this one, and that's all you can really ask for in a divisional matchup like this.
You're giving me flashbacks, so I can't argue with anything that you said. Just got to double down on what it is. And for me, it's there is a bit of a question. The team is healthy in Kansas City, except for this question that we have at left tackle. Luckily, the backup in Jalen Moore, the Chiefs spent money on in order to be in this situation where your swing tackle is a guy that you feel you can plug in and get a W on. He was able to do that against Aiden Hutchinson, arguably one of the top 5 pass rushers, right along with Max, right? Doing that 2 weeks in a row, if he has to go, I think that's a question. You got to support him, got to give him a little bit more, especially knowing that Max brings a little something extra for this team and for Patrick. So controlling him, not stopping him, just controlling him is job number 1. I thought they did a good job moving the pocket last week, making sure that the run was not just varied, but was physical. And I think that's the key as well. We know they're not going to bring my fullback out as much as I would like. We know that they're not going to run all day long, but they got to make those runs efficient. They got to make them physically taxing against that defensive front. If they do that, I think they can get a W.
Yeah, no, that's a good recipe right there. And yeah, that offensive line and obviously the big tackle in Simmons, that's a big deal, right? And so I'm interested to see how that plays out. That caught my attention last week. I'm sitting in the press box at Allegiant Stadium. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, he's not playing, personal reasons. Like, whoa, hold on. That's your starting left tackle. What's going on out there? And, who's your other guy that lines up in the backfield all the time?
He's Max's favorite target, Juwan Taylor, right?
Yes, thank you. I don't know how his name slipped my mind. That dude is always lined up in the backfield, man. I can't get enough of that dude. I'm like, man, what is really going on here? It's funny, man. I was talking about the Chiefs on Monday. I was talking to Kirk Morrison, who's on the broadcast. He's the color commentator for the Raiders, and he said, "You telling me last week the Chiefs didn't line up on offsides one time? They didn't have an illegal formation one time. They didn't create one stinking penalty." You're like, you know how it goes. So you know how the narrative is for the Chiefs and the officials. It's pretty funny. So of course, Raider Nation's on edge with that as well. So that should be a fun storyline to follow throughout the course of this game.
Well, it's crazy to me because. It's crazy to me because you can look back at the week before, and the Jacksonville Jaguars didn't have that many penalties. Kansas City had 13.
Yeah,
and they come back and they have 0. So, and I'm not saying they didn't commit penalties. They did. I mean, they had
Everyone
one.
Does. Every team does.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, it is what it is. I'm looking at this game, and to me, the biggest key to a win for Kansas City is be who you are. And what I mean by that is attack with your passing game. You are led by the best quarterback in football, and I say that shamelessly. I think he's the best quarterback in football, and with that, you give him the ball, and you give him the ability to use the weapons that he has never had on the field when you've had these receivers for 23 games now, 23 regular season games, haven't ever had Worthy, Rice, and Hollywood Brown all available at once. And you add in a Juju Smith-Schuster who's been playing well, and Tyquan Thornton. This is the best receiving core I think he's had maybe even in his career. And I say that even when he had Tyreek Hill. Yeah, I'll say it, Ryan.
Come on now. Come on. Let's not get crazy.
I'm gonna let y'all handle that one.
We'll be back in a minute, Q. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay out of that conversation. Y'all good.
No. Tyreek Hill was. I'm not saying that everybody on this wide receiver core is better than Tyreek Hill. I'm saying the core itself is better than what he had when he had Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is just one wide receiver. Who else did he have normally? It was usually Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle. I mean, you don't have the depth. Sammy played okay at times. Regardless, they have the best offense.
Y'all go outside, man. Y'all go outside.
All right, let's
get back to you when you're ready.
Fair enough.
Different show.
You win this game by being who you are. You win this game by letting Patrick Mahomes do what he does best, and that is go out there and find the open man, figure it out before the ball is snapped, know where he's going with it, and make plays when stuff breaks down. That's how you win this game. That's the biggest key for Kansas City to win this game for me.
No, that's fair. That's fair, and that's probably the recipe that they're going to try to, employ. Look, truth be told, I'm a big Tyquan Thornton guy. He was a Baylor dude. I covered him at Baylor. I'm glad that he's finally having success in the league after some failures there in New England. I'm glad he's having success. And why wouldn't he have success with Patrick Mahomes, right? He probably could make me a good wide receiver, but that's another conversation. Not going to worry about that. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's what they're going to try to do, right? I think they're going to try to, do what they do best, which is pass the ball around the yard and get going and really put the stress on the Raiders defense and the secondary and the linebackers and, everyone that we talked about. I think that's the only way that they're going to play, right? I mean, we've seen them get going a little bit in the run game as of late, but I mean, with Patrick Mahomes, and those numbers could be skewed or whatever, but he's still the leading rusher for the team, right? And so, I mean, I think that we'll see probably a ton of the passing game and see if the Raiders can hold up to the test. But I do know it's going to be fun paying attention to it one way or the other, no matter how it plays out.
Be sure you check out Q over at Locked On Raiders and Ryan and Chris over at Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We have the Panthers and the Jets up next. Aaron Glenn's first year as the Jets head coach. The Jets are going to be missing Garrett Wilson for a little bit. There are trade rumors around Breece Hall. A lot of interesting storylines in New York right now with that Jets team. And then you also have the Panthers, who have won 3 of their last 4 games, putting on a little bit of a show in the NFC South here. So Julian Council of Locked On Panthers and John Butchko of Locked On Jets talk about if Bryce Young can pull out the win or if Justin Fields can be the one to take this one home.
It's Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm John Butchko, the host of Locked On Jets, alongside Julian Council, the host of Locked On Panthers, getting you ready for Week 7 action. New York Jets at 0-6, looking for their first win. The surprising Carolina Panthers looking to go over 500. Julian, let's talk keys to victory.
Yeah, let's do it. So the 3 ones I have for Carolina right now: continue the success on the ground. They've been outstanding so far the last 2 weeks, especially as Rico Dowdle has run all over Miami and Dallas, respectively. 2 not great defenses against the run. Now the Jets, as you look at it, one stat says not all that great. The others say, okay, top 10. You watching it, you say middle of the road. And I think that's probably fair when you have such a disparity between just the basic total yardage and some of the more advanced analytics. But this should be a team that Carolina should be able to have success against. Now, Quentin Williams, he obviously is a menace there at defensive tackle. So we'll see how they're able to block him in the run game. But I expect that Carolina, even bringing in Chuba Hubbard, and maybe there's going to be a little learning curve there, trying to get both Rico and Chuba touches and getting those guys in rhythm. I'm expecting them to have success again on the ground on Sunday. Number 2, get pressure on Justin Fields. If you're able to do that, whether that's him holding on to the ball too long, you actually being able to get those pressures off the edge or in the interior, that's going to lead to mistakes, and that's going to lead to a Panthers victory on Sunday. And then number 3, stay in the fight, man. You look at the road game so far. They're 0-3 on the road, 3-3 at home. At some point in time, the tide's got to turn. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen on the road this Sunday against the Jets of all teams, I would think. And they haven't given themselves an opportunity in a lot of these road games. They did not give themselves an opportunity against Jacksonville as they got down 20-3 at halftime. The next week, they were down 20-3 again in that game against Arizona. And then against New England, they got blitzed. They were up 6-0. Things were going fine. And then they gave up the punt return touchdown. Marcus Jones couldn't stop the run on the next drive. And the rest is history as New England ran off and won 42-13. Now against this team, Jackson, you look at it, not bad. They beat the Chiefs. They're 4-2. New England, clearly, they're top of the division right now in the AFC. So it looks like they're pretty doggone good. At Arizona, they're in free fall mode since that game. Like, this is a game that Carolina has to be in the whole time. There's no reason they should be getting down by 3 touchdowns, hell, even 2 touchdowns in this game. This is one where you have to stay in the fight on the road. Whatever demons that they have right now, you got to overcome those because, like, of all games against all teams, like, this is the one you have to have on the road.
I hear that a lot this year. I'll give you my keys. Number 1 is I think the Jets need to have a more diverse set of run plays. Heading into the season, I thought that this was going to be a very creative rushing attack, and it kind of has to be when Justin Fields is your quarterback. We know that Fields is still a work in progress as a pocket passer, but he can make things happen with his legs. And I've been surprised at not the types of plays the Jets have run and the volume Fields has gotten or not gotten. He has not had more than 7 rushing attempts since week 1. And, if you go back to his best season in 2022 with Chicago, he was averaging almost 11 rushing attempts per game. Now, some of these are coming on scrambles. And one of the things with Justin Fields is that while he's a very talented runner, he doesn't always pick his spots well on scrambles. But that's not something the coach can really control. What the coach can control are the types of run plays they execute. And for Fields against Denver on Sunday, the only rushing plays that the Jets ran, he outside of his scrambles, they ran a couple quarterback sneaks in short yardage situations, and then a couple very basic zone reads from the shotgun. No real eye candy, no motion, and I don't think that can work with Justin Fields as quarterback. I think if you're going to lean into the run game to replace some of the passing that you're not going to get, you have to you kind of have to disguise things better, and you have to run a more diverse set of plays. I think it's been one of my biggest disappointments with the new offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand. I mean, the most creative the Jets have gotten is they'll put Max Mitchell, a backup offensive lineman, in there along with 2 tight ends. They'll run these jumbo packages, but you're not seeing the Justin Fields utilized with his rushing ability nearly to the extent that I was expecting, or that I think the Jets offense should be running. I think that's one of the sources of the Jets offensive struggles. Number 2 is, I would say, keep the adjustments that you made last week on defense. I'll be honest, Julian, I have not been a fan of Steve Wilks. I have been very critical of Steve Wilks. And I feel bad because, you just mentioned he's a popular guy in the Panthers fan base. I've said after a couple of games, I've never seen a coordinator who deserved to be fired more than Steve Wilks. So sorry, Carolina fans. But they made some changes last week. Some of them were personnel changes. One of them was they got Jermaine Johnson back from injury. Jermaine Johnson suffered an ankle injury week 2 against the Buffalo Bills. The Jets really missed him at the defensive end spot. This is a defensive line with some good talent in Jermaine Johnson, Quinnen Williams, and I think Will McDonald, even though he's not having a great year. There's not a lot of depth, though. And when they lost Jermaine Johnson, it was felt. I think when he was back last week, that had something to do with why they had the best defensive game of the year. But there were a couple other personnel changes. The rookie Malachi Moore stepped into the starting lineup for Tony Adams at safety. Adams has been really struggling. Moore had looked pretty decent as a part-time player. Finally got into the lineup full-time last week. I thought looked good. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. stepped in at slot corner for an injured Michael Carter II. Carter had been struggling in the slot. Brownlee was a guy the Jets just traded for from Tennessee. He forced the first Jets turnover of the season. He stripped the ball away on the first series. And I thought the Jets also made a few schematic changes. I thought they played more of like a bend but don't break style. Earlier in the season, they've been a lot more blitzing. Whatever they were doing worked. They cut down on the missed tackles. They held Denver to 13 points. They produced 2 points on the safety. So keep doing what you're doing, because they went from looking like the most undisciplined unit I've ever seen the first 5 games, between penalties, missed tackles, predictable blitzes, and they looked like a pretty good defense in against the Denver Broncos. And my third key is they have to figure out ways to get short fields. This offense is the personnel is what it is. All three scores the Jets had on Sunday against Denver came on the result of short fields, turnover, a couple of kickoff returns. So Jets need to figure out how to do that. And there are lots of different ways you can do it, but this offense is not going to be able to sustain long drives with this receiver group. And that's so I think that they need to help this offense out as much as they can, especially with Justin Fields struggling to the extent he is.
Yeah, and for Carolina, obviously you can't give them those short fields by making mistakes, and that's really the only way New York wins this game, just based off of where these teams are trending at this point in time. But the Jets, I mean, they're pros over there. They got good players defensively, as you mentioned. Maybe things haven't worked out so far with Wilks, and he still, even when he was going on that run, there were some people who were like, we don't want Ron Rivera 2.0, as if like the Ron Rivera era was like a terrible era in Carolina. Like, that's the best it's ever been here, which, I mean, people can argue with me if they want about that. I just thought that was funny. And then just to hire Frank Reich and for him to get fired 11 games into it, it's like, maybe Steve Wilks would have worked out. So I don't know. Hasn't worked out. It worked out for a year in San Francisco for Steve as they went to the Super Bowl. And I think in large part it's because of the Niners and Kyle Shanahan and all that they have there. But yeah, very interesting game on Sunday from both perspectives. Like the Jets, if they can get that win, a little bit of heat off of the backs of that coaching staff, guys feeling good. You're not having to hear any we shoot ourselves in the head quotes from Breece Hall like we got a couple of weeks ago, which was just amazing. But yeah, for Carolina overall, like, this is when you have to win. You win this, that's 3 straight wins. That's your 4-3. Now, how good are the teams that you would have beaten? Looking at Miami, they're not very good, obviously. Dallas, they're not that great. They're fine. And in Atlanta, I think is a lot better than what they showed a couple of weeks ago. But for a fact, we know that the Jets are not a good football team and are not going to be a good football team this season. Like, this is a game that you got to have. So you get the 4-3, then you get Buffalo at home next week. You get Green Bay on the road after that. And we get to find out just how good this team is. But I'm going to sit here and tell you right now, John, I don't trust them. I don't trust this team to go up there and win this game. I think they should win the game, and I think that they will. But, I mean, I still wouldn't be shocked if they didn't. That's I'll say that. Hope Panther fans aren't mad at me for believing that, but there's plenty of people who've already made the joke immediately after that game against Dallas, like watch them just go up there in New York and go lay an egg and lose that game against the Jets. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's not out the realm of possibility, my friend.
Let me put your mind at ease. You said Dallas isn't a very good team. Miami isn't a very good team. Well, they both beat the Jets pretty handily. So
yes, that's true.
Be sure to check out John over at Locked On Jets and Julian over at Locked On Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Round out the 1 p.m. slate of games, the New Orleans Saints and the Chicago Bears. Hey, the Bears coming off of that great Monday night win over the Washington Commanders, and the Saints, well, they're looking for positives right now. So Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints, as well as Lauren Cox of Locked On Bears, talk about which team will come out on top.
And as we continue our crossover Thursday, Locked On Bears, Locked On Saints podcast, I want to thank you for making Locked On Bears and Locked On Saints your first listens each and every day. And if you're looking for a second listen, well, you can always get more Saints info from Locked On Saints. If you're a Bears fan, if you're a Saints fan, and you want more behind enemy lines from Locked On Bears, you can check out the other rival podcast this week for your second listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But Ross, as we look at some of the biggest keys to victory, we talked about some of the matchups in both ways, but what do you think swings this either way? Like, I think with the Saints being 4 or 5 point underdogs, the line has moved on FanDuel a little bit. Like, what does it have to take for them to find a way to get the victory as an underdog?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is going to be how the early portion of the game shapes up. The New Orleans Saints are number 32, and just to make sure everybody remembers, there are only 32 teams. So they're last when it comes to first quarter point differential, minus 49 through the first 6 weeks of the season. That is not good. And so New Orleans, who is also minus 49 in their point margin so far throughout the season as a whole, regardless of quarter, putting it all together game by game, the early portions of the games are a place where the Saints tend to win or lose matchups. The Giants game being the exception there, which I guess I should say then this is where they lose matchups because that was their only win of the season. And so getting started early and the defense shaping up early while the offense gets a little bit more aggressive and looks to put points on the board, converting touchdowns on their possessions as opposed to settling for field goals, which they've done a lot of so far this season. I think that early on in the game has to be the most important thing going into this matchup. I can go into turnover battles, I can go into red zone, I can go into all these other things. But to me, it's the first 4 drives of the game, the first quarter of the game. If the Saints are trailing in that situation, they're likely buried. And if they are buried, then they're not going to win by the end of it. But if they can start off a little bit hotter than they have on both sides of the football, they'll at least have a better shot.
I'm curious, if they start slow like that, have they been better than at like halftime adjustments coming out in the second half? Because I think for Chicago, the Bears have started fast pretty consistently, and they'll get a couple of scoring drives at least in that first quarter, and then things kind of slow down in quarters 2 and 3, and then like in the fourth quarter they turn it back on and they go pretty clutch at the end there. And I could kind of see the Saints being maybe a little bit differently, where like, hey, they're slow out of the gate, but then third, fourth quarter, when you have time at halftime to kind of tweak and adjust things, maybe they start to figure some things out. Or how has that process been?
Yeah, it's been a lot of, the Saints are really good defensively in the second half. And it's like, yeah, because they're already down multiple scores and the opposing offense isn't rushing to put more points on the board. They're trying to chew the clock away. And so I think that a lot of the sort of, I'll call it mirage of the Saints' second half defense being very strong or second half play being very strong, it really has a lot to do with the change on the opposite side of the opposite sideline than their own sidelines. It's not really halftime adjustments more than it is, okay, the other team is just working on protecting a lead as opposed to putting more points on the board. I'll give you one example. The Saints in Seattle didn't give up a lot of points in the second half. I think it was only 6 points in the second half. The issue is they give up 38 in the first half. So who's to say, maybe the Saints defense and special teams and all that got perfect in the second half, but that's probably not the case, right? So right. I do think that there is an illusion of the Saints second half defense being much stronger and second half play being much stronger, but putting points on the board on offense has still been an issue. Getting touchdowns over field goals, regardless of half or quarter, that has been a consistent issue for them. And then the slow starts have led to comfortable opposition in the second half, which has led to maybe some of the more positive numbers that you can see on the second half defensive side.
Well, I'll say from a Bears perspective, like the way they lose this game feels a lot more like them beating themselves, because those were kind of some of the issues they had against the Commanders and the Raiders in wins, where it's like way too many penalties, some dropped passes and miscommunications between quarterback and receiver, and kind of getting yourself behind the sticks a little bit here and there. And then they give up a lot of yards on kickoff returns and like just little things that you feel like you can clean up, and you're making it too easy on the opponent. Like they still have to do their part, but you hand it to them on a little bit more of a silver platter. And that's where they've gotten in trouble and needed, fourth quarter comeback drives at the end of these games to come out with just 1 point victories. So with that being said, Ross, where do you see this one going? What kind of prediction point total are you looking for from these two teams?
Yeah, I'm taking the Bears in this one. I think Dennis Allen gets his revenge a little bit, and everyone here in New Orleans is going to hate it for about a week or so. So I'm going for the Bears here, 20-14 over the Saints at home.
20-14. Yeah, I'm with you there. Like I think it's not going to be like a huge 38-point blowout in the first half, like you said with the Seahawks, but like the Bears will be able to take care of business here and not necessarily like play down to the opponent that they've got. A similar score for me. Like I'm thinking like, 24-13, 24-17, somewhere kind of in that range. I think the Bears will get their points. I think the Saints will get a few drives and they'll get a big play here or there that the Bears defense gives up, but it won't be enough.
Ross is over at Locked On Saints. Lauren is over at Locked On Bears. Be sure to support them, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That'll do it for the 1 p.m. slate of games, but it will not do it for us here on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Shows. We have a great 4 p.m. window to talk about next. Stay tuned, plenty to come here on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. First, this show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Continuing on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show, Kevin Ostreicher is still racking out with you here. Week 7, there's plenty of NFL action to talk about. Let's roll into the 4 p.m. slate of games. The Colts and the Chargers, two AFC powerhouses right now. The Colts, they are being led by Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor. The Chargers picked up a big win over the Dolphins in week number 6. Justin Herbert obviously looking to add another win to the Chargers record. So you're looking right now, you're going to have Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts and Daniel Wade of Locked On Chargers talking about which team will come out on top in that big AFC matchup.
All right, well, it's time to get into the nitty-gritty here, Zach. Of course, it is Locked On Chargers, Locked On Colts crossover episode here. I'm Daniel Wade, host of Locked On Chargers, and I'm here with Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, as the Colts everydayers know already. But there are several things I think the Chargers have to do. I mean, some of them are going to have to run into tomorrow's episode, because I think the Colts maybe are the best team in the AFC and arguably have been one of the best teams in the NFL. I think the Chargers are going to have to play a pretty flawless game in a lot of aspects. But thank you, as always, to the everydayers for making us your first listen. We appreciate all of you guys from both shows. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On NFL, because they're putting out 2 shows a day with Tyler the Madman rolling in the morning and my guy Tony Wiggins in the barbershop later on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from. But let's get into it. 3 different things that are going to decide this game. I am the host, Chargers hosting in SoFi, so I'll be polite and allow you to go first. Zach, what do you think are the 3 keys for the Colts to pull this thing off?
Well, I appreciate the kindness there. We love some Midwestern hospitality here, and it's a big part of it here. But yeah, I think the most important thing, and I think Chargers fans will probably laugh at this, is the one thing that can beat the Chargers on every single Sunday is a little thing called the Chargers. The Chargers are great at beating themselves on Sundays. He knows. I know. I still live in the DC area. I watched the Commanders game against the Chargers. And great example of how the Chargers can beat themselves. And I think the key anytime you play against the Chargers is make them the team that beats themselves. Don't beat yourself against them, because they will have these games every year where they just forget how to play football. They fumble the ball. They throw interceptions. They get these terrible penalties. So I think that's always the key when you play against the Chargers is don't be the one that gives them the game. Like, let them give you the game.
Let them beat themselves. Sure.
Right. Going to the next one, though, the Colts have held this philosophy all season long of pass to score, run to win. So for that to be successful, like it has been pretty much every single week, you have to be able to throw the ball early to set up that late game run. And I've held maintain this stance on the Colts all year, where if they have a lead in the second half, good luck beating them because you're going to get the Jonathan Taylor treatment the rest of that third and fourth quarter. And it's hard to get him on the ground this year. He is just running extremely well. Only 6% of his rushes have gone for negative yards. He has been excellent at pushing the ball forward and keeping the Colts on pace. So the Colts got to throw the ball early, open up the things for the run game. And then especially if Khalil Mack's not playing, just feed Jonathan Taylor after you get that lead. That'll be the big part there. And the last one is, look, this is a road game for the Colts. They rely heavily on pre-snap motion, play action, and moving things around and muddying those looks for defenses before the snap. Don't get those pre-snap penalties. Don't fall into that trap that teams fall into in the road environment where you get knocked off schedule, knocked into 1st and 15, 2nd and 15, 2nd and 20. Yep. Avoid those pre-snap mistakes. Avoid the holdings. Avoid the crowd noise disrupting what you do. Stay on pace. Put up your 30-something points you've done every week, and you'll have a good chance to beat anybody, even with your 10th-string corners. So those are my big keys for the Colts. One, win the turnover battle. Let the Chargers beat themselves. That's always going to be a key against the Chargers. 2, pass to score, run to win, get that lead out of the half, and let Jonathan Taylor run you to victory. And 3, it kind of goes to the don't beat yourself, but avoid the pre-snap penalties. Avoid those things that knock your offense back so you could stay on track and get points on the board.
Yeah, it's hard to, I mean, if the Colts can do all those things, they will win this game. And it'll be up to the Chargers to a certain extent to get them out of that, right? Because I do think there are some similar keys. Like the Chargers need to get off to a fast start. And that is my first key here because the Chargers won last week because the game script allowed it to a certain extent, right? If they get down and have to throw to get back into the game and leave their offensive lineman in that situation, it's not going to be good. Chargers were good last week, put up 29 points. Everything was going pretty well for their offense until that last drive. And I'm sure you saw the play that won them the game. But the 2 plays they had was Justin Herbert getting absolutely crunched because the other team knows he's passing the football and getting rid of the football. And the other one was him avoiding getting crunched and then finding Ladd McConkey for what ended up being the game-winning reception, right? So the Chargers have to get off fast. They can't afford to be trailing this Colts team and letting them run the ball down their throat. If the Chargers can go into the fourth quarter with a 10-point lead, right, that's a lot harder to let Jonathan Taylor just batter you and batter you and batter you for the rest of that game. So that's going to be huge. And also, to your point, you can't charge her. Also, it would be great not to turn the ball over early. We're talking about 4 straight games for the Chargers, to your point, where they have not just a turnover. 3 of those games, they have multiple, but 4 straight games with a first-half turnover. And you said it. You watched the Commanders game. That game changed dramatically when Quentin Johnston fumbled.
Yep.
They didn't score again after that, right? But then you have the punt return touchdown that wasn't because of the roughing the kicker. They can beat themselves, and they can't do that in this game, or they're just not going to get a chance. And more than that, they could get blown out. Number 2 for me, don't get dominated in the trenches. If you let the Colts push you around defensively, Jonathan Taylor is going to go for 200 yards in this game. A Jim Harbaugh team who pride themselves in physicality, haven't always been that this year, they cannot be physically bullied in this game, or it's just going to be a long day. And on the flip side of that, the Chargers have to give Justin Herbert a chance. We talked about it in the biggest matchups. You have to find some semblance of a running game as well. You have to be balanced. You have to protect your offensive line like you did last week. Like I talked about earlier, Colts have 5 players with at least 10 pressures, top 10 in total pressures, but 19th in team pressure percentage. So this isn't necessarily the dominant force that the Chargers have seen in some of these last weeks, right? Biggest one to me here, mostly because of how bad they've been here, have to come through in the red zone, especially against this team on both sides of it. Like this game, Zach, could easily be decided by which team decides to settle for field goals in the red zone and which team can score those touchdowns. The Colts have scored 10 straight trips into the red zone. They have gotten touchdowns, and that's just the last 2 weeks, which is insane and honestly probably shouldn't be allowed. But that's not the point. The Chargers have to be a lot better themselves. When you have Justin Herbert, when you have the weapons they have, there's no reason you should be the worst team at scoring touchdowns in the red zone in the entire NFL. They only score touchdowns 35% of the time. Some of that's the lack of aggressiveness from Jim Harbaugh, which I think has to be kind of ratcheted up. If you want to beat a team who's better than you right now, that's where it has to come from. Ladd McConkey, back-to-back weeks getting in the end zone. Quentin Johnston, their leading touchdown getter, should be back this week, almost certainly back this week. If the Chargers can stop the Colts a couple of times in the red zone, make them settle for 3 with a kicker, right? That's a new kicker. It'll give them a chance. And I think that's all you can do in this game. Give yourself a chance, because I think the Colts are the better team. If they can get off to a fast start, if they can just not get dominated, they don't even have to win in the trenches. It just has to be close. Don't get dominated in the trenches. Have to come through in the red zone. If they do, Zach, they'll have a chance.
Yeah, that's a great final point here, and I really want to reiterate that is the red zone offense versus defense will be massive in this game. If you actually look at these two teams on offense, their points per game, the Colts are averaging nearly 33 points per game. The Chargers around 21 points per game.
Yeah.
But similar on offense, similar in terms of total offense and all the yardage here. So these teams,
one team's just putting it into the end zone and one's not. Yeah.
And it always takes 1 week just to get it back on track. The Colts were in the bottom 5 in red zone offense going into that game against the Raiders.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
5 straight trips where they converted in the red zone there, and then 5 against the Cardinals. Got their last 10 to punch it into the end zone to bump up to 10th in the NFL now in red zone offense. So it only takes just 1 week to get it back on track for the Colts. Make sure that's not this week for the Chargers offense, and make sure that you're continuing what you've been doing. The Colts offense has been great at, they struggled early in the year at just between the 10 and 20 yard line, getting it within the 10, is getting from that high red to the low red. But
that
recently they've just punched it down close. And when they get within that 5 yard line, it's Taylor, it's Tyler Warren, it's Daniel Jones sneaking it. It's hard to keep them out of the end zone. So for the Colts offense to keep up that play that they've had in the red zone, just keep punching it within the 10, and then do the Jim Harbaugh thing, play some bully ball. That's the biggest thing here for the Colts this year. They played bully ball.
Yeah, or you could not. The Colts could not play bully ball. It wouldn't be a lot of fun for me. But let's be honest, man. Like, this is a team that was, neck and neck with Jacoby Brissett last week. Like, it's not that I don't think the Chargers have no chance in this game. I mean, they're favorites according to FanDuel. I don't agree with that, but the Chargers will give themselves a chance. The Colts been a little bit different on the road than they've been at home, right? But they like I said, they almost have to play a flawless game. They have to hit on these keys here to give themselves a chance, because if you just get run over like you have, 3 weeks in a row, it's just not going to be close. Like, they're just going to control the ball. They're not going to give you the chances that you need, and you're going to be playing a style of offense that you're just not equipped to right now with the guys that you're missing. So really excited about it. The Chargers, through everything, could be the number 1 team in the AFC after this weekend, man. Like, to have that and potentially be getting guys like Joe Wall back eventually, or Trey Pipkins, even if they don't play in this game, that's huge. And for the Colts, it's just, continuing to further cement the fact that, no, this isn't just, a blip on the radar. Like, we're here, and not only are we here, we're for real. And I think this is just another step for them to show that they can do that. If they can beat a team who's undefeated in their conference, has taken down, the Chiefs and the Broncos and some of those teams already. So super excited for it. I do think it could be a close game, especially if the Chargers can hit on all these keys for sure. But I'm really hoping it's going to be a good game, because it's absolutely a big game.
You can check out Zach over at Locked On Colts and Daniel over at Locked On Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The New York Giants, look at Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbugo. They are tearing up the league right now, one of the biggest stories in football. They're going up against a vaunted Broncos defense in week number 7. Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants, as well as Sayer Bedinger of Locked On Broncos. They have everything you need to know, from key storylines, key matchups, and so much more.
What has to happen in week 7 for the Denver Broncos and the New York Giants to get victories? Well, we're going to tell you on today's Crossover Thursday edition, Locked On Broncos and Locked On Giants. Once again, just want to say thank you to all of you that make us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, take a second, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Patricia, I'm going to defer to you first here. I don't make like score predictions typically on the Crossover. I'm fine if you want to do that. You can feel free, but I'm interested to know from you. I think, just kind of looking into the crystal ball a little bit here, the Giants will win this game if. Answer that question for all the listeners out there.
Well, first off, I'm not going to make a score prediction because I never get it right. I don't even come close. So I don't like to make score predictions unless, somebody puts me on the spot. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Good. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the matchup. We can't have Nick Bonito destroying the Giants' backfield. That's number 1. And I think Andrew Thomas, just to build off of what I said last segment, I think he should be able to handle Nick Bonito by his lonesome, which is, a plus. But for the Giants, if you go back and you look at their losses, they all have a common denominator. And that common denominator, mistakes. self-inflicted wounds, whether it be a pre-snap penalty, whether it be a turnover. I mean, we saw the Saints game, 5 turnovers. I mean, you can't win games if you're going backwards or you're giving the ball away. You just can't. So, the Giants, they have talent. They just need to stop hurting themselves with stupid mistakes. And, the Broncos, their defense in particular is very opportunistic. So you can't be gift wrapping, interceptions or fumbles. Ball security is a huge thing. One of the things with Jackson Dart that I still wish they would kind of clean up in his game, when he runs with the ball, sometimes he kind of is reckless. He'll swing it out there, doesn't hold it high and tight. And I'd like to see him maybe work on that a little bit more, because I sit there and I go, don't lose the ball. So that's something I think is number one. I know that's a piece of low hanging fruit there, but that's obviously the first thing. I think the other thing with the Giants, they've got to take what the Broncos give them. That defense is, I think, the number 1 or the number 2 defense. It's up there in the top 5. Very, very tough customer, not just because of Nick Bonito, the whole group and how Vance Joseph has them playing. So when you have that, take what they give you. Don't try to force things into, tight windows or do anything that, is going to come back to bite you later on in the game. So that's key. And then the third thing I'll say is get after Bo Nix. He's still a young quarterback. That pass rush of the Giants has been pretty good. So if they can get after him, maybe confuse him a little bit, rattle him a little bit, I think the Giants could come out of Denver with a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bo Nix, he doesn't take a lot of sacks, but pressure will get to him, and he'll, get sloppy footwork, and he will overthrow passes, things like that. So it's not just about not taking sacks if you're Bo Nix. It's about actually making throws under duress, under pressure, because these guys that the Giants have, they're going to get theirs. I mean, that's just when you're playing against elite players at any position, they're going to have theirs. Elite receivers, they're going to get their catches. Elite running backs, they're going to have their big runs. Elite pass rushers, they're going to get their pressures. So the Broncos and Bo Nix can't expect the pass protection to pitch a shutout in this game. I will say, and you said low hanging fruit. I think it's, at this point in the season, I mean, you want to run the ball, you want to create turnovers, you want to get to the quarterback, you want to be efficient, you want to take care of the ball. I think for the Denver Broncos, it's kind of the opposite of what you said. The Broncos have not forced a turnover since week 3. I mean, it's been rough to watch. And I think that when you see the way that this defense plays, like you said, they are opportunistic. They almost had one against Garrett Wilson. I don't know how it wasn't a turnover in that particular play, but the Broncos have to find a way to start creating takeaways off of their defensive dominance, because you get to a quarterback for 9 sacks in a game and you don't punch the ball loose on a single one of them. I mean, easy for me to say, sitting here in my office chair saying, hey, why don't you just punch the ball out when you get to the quarterback? It's not always that easy, obviously, but this defense has to start imposing its will in different ways and creating better field position for the offense. Another area the Broncos have to be better if they want to win this game. They've got to be better on kickoff coverage. The Broncos have allowed the most kickoff return yards per return of any team in the NFL and the third most overall kickoff return yards. It was so bad, Patricia, that earlier this week, the Broncos signed JT Gray off the Baltimore Ravens practice squad, a guy who was kind of surprisingly cut by the Saints, but has some history with Sean Payton and Darren Rizzi as an all-pro special teams player. The kickoff coverage has been so bad this year that they're literally signing guys right now to try and atone for their roster building sins. And so I think that's a huge area. Is it comes down to field position. I mean, like you said, it sounds like low-hanging fruit, but if you're not winning the field position game, you're setting up any quarterback. I don't care if it's a rookie like Jackson Dart or whoever. If you set them up with good field position, NFL teams are going to find ways to take advantage.
Yeah, and you mentioned special teams, and guess what? The Giants' special teams are like top 5 in all the major categories. They have been very, very good. We don't talk about it a whole lot. We probably should, but the Giants have won field position, I think, in 4 of their first games. So, they did it against the Eagles. I think they beat the Eagles in field position by a good 10 plus yards. So that is a big, big factor that, again, doesn't get mentioned a whole lot because we look at the marquee matchups, but the Giants special teams, the return game, the coverage game has really turned around from being, a weak spot, which it was like a year or 2 ago.
especially in today's NFL where the kickoff rules are different. Every team is kind of adjusting and adapting. It does feel like we've seen an abnormal amount of special teams, either big plays or mistakes by teams that have cost you. I mean, the Broncos have experienced it firsthand. You get a leverage penalty called against the Indianapolis Colts. Right now, that's the difference between the Broncos being on top of the AFC and kind of fighting and battling with the Chargers and the Chiefs for a position in the AFC West in general. So it's interesting to see how big special teams has become this season. But I think Broncos fans and Broncos country in general expected a lot more out of special teams coordinator Darren Rizzi, who was a very highly renowned and regarded special teams coach as the interim coach of the Saints last year. So going to be interesting to see what these two teams do in this particular matchup. Jackson Dart, Cam Scattaboo, they're coming on the road to the Mile High City to face off against the Denver Broncos. It'll be exciting. It's going to be a fun one. Broncos country knows what it's like to kind of be in that beginning stages of hopefully discovering your franchise quarterback. And like you said, Patricia, when we were about to start this one, a little bit of just a pep in the step around the Giants organization going into this game.
Yeah, let's hope it keeps up. I mean, the Giants are coming off 10 days in between games. The Broncos, as you said at the start, a lot of traveling. So how are they going to function? I don't know if that's an advantage or a disadvantage. I mean, I guess it all depends, but it should be a good one. The Giants, that momentum has to carry over. And I think if they keep carrying it over and saying, yeah, we can beat these tough teams, these playoff teams from last year, that whole argument about the tough schedule now goes out the window.
We'll see what these two teams do here in week 7. It's going to be a huge momentum swing either way for both of these squads. If the Giants can win, that'll be 3 of their last 4. If the Broncos can win, man, they'll be in a great position to be able to make a run here in the AFC West.
Check out Sarah over at Locked On Broncos and check out Patricia over at Locked On Giants, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Little NFC East battle here. The Commanders and the Cowboys, both of those teams trying to find their way a little bit this season, both coming off tough losses in week number 6. David Harrison of Locked On Commanders, as well as Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys, talk about which team is going to get the win here and get a win in the NFC East.
Welcome back to this crossover edition of the Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Commanders podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, David, let's talk some keys to victory. What do the Commanders need to do to get this win and improve to 4-3?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've kind of touched on a few of these things, so I'll be a little bit quicker, but obviously you have to eliminate the turnovers. You can't give away, possessions, and credit to the Chicago Bears on the one fumble, the first fumble of the game that they recovered against the Commanders. They certainly created that. Montez Sweat with a great punch out to get that ball loose, but the interception was a late throw. Great read by Jaden Daniels, late throw. I think as that game went on, you saw him trust his own reads a little bit better, a little bit faster, and that's when you saw that kind of old Jaden Daniels come out 3 touchdowns later type of thing. And then the second fumble right there at the end of the game was just, Jaden said it himself, lack of focus on his part and just terrible timing on it. Get the ground game running like we just talked about in depth, and then pass rush. This Dallas Cowboys, offense, for one reason or another, you can tell me whether it's the O-line, whether it's just Dak, whether it's the scheme, whatever it is, they're just not giving up sacks. And this Washington Commanders, it's all the above. And this Washington Commanders pass rush, top 5 in sack rate right now. So one of those things has got to give. One of those things is not going to be continuous in this game. If you're the Commanders, you got to make it their side. You can't make it your side. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. has 5.5 sacks through 6 games. He is on a tear. He's on pace to have almost 17 sacks this season. Certainly on pace to eclipse his career total. He's dealing with a hamstring, so he's also right now questionable for this weekend. But if he's out there, go out there. It's not really revenge, right? But go out there and get that performance back in your old home stadium. Von Miller, come out there, do what you were brought in to do, shoot those threes, as he put it, and get that pressure on Dak Prescott up the middle. Get that pressure. Javon Kinlaw can be a beast when he's really on, and see if we can't get Frankie Louvu opened up. I mean, offense have been putting big dudes on Frankie Louvu to take him out of the picture, and it's working. So 2 things: Joey Jr. got to continue to adjust to teams trying to isolate Bobby Wagner, and you got to continue to try to find ways to get Frankie Louvu loose, because you got to get pressure on Dak Prescott. Deep passes mean long developing routes. Get that pressure on Dak and see if you can't take advantage of what is a middle ground interception rate that he's got right now. Because if you don't, I mean, Ray Allen can we stick with the NBA analogies? Like, you just let Dak stand on the spot. You might as well just be playing against Ray Allen, right?
Real quick.
I'm not going to go Steph Curry yet. But I'll give him Ray Allen.
It's fine. Ray Allen's a good one. Can it really be a revenge game when a team drafts you in the 4th round, and then they give you another contract? And
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a revenge. I don't think Dorrance has any hard feelings.
No, Dorrance is a good dude. For the Cowboys, the offense, the standard is so high. They have to be almost perfect on offense. You can't turn the ball over. You can't have multiple drives in a row where you punt the ball. You can't kick field goals in the red zone. And that was the issue last week. They punted the ball twice. That was one time too many. Like, you cannot do that in this game because you know what your defense is. So go out there with the intention and the idea of, like, we've got to score 34 points. And on the defensive side, just make things weird, right? Try to get your hands up in the air in the passing lanes and tip some balls into the air. Send some weird blitzes that don't make sense, that might confuse Jaden Daniels. You're going to get gashed one way in this game or another. You might as well try to be aggressive creating takeaways, because I think if Dallas can get 1 or 2 turnovers in this game or get a quick 3 and out, that's how you flip a game and you win it like this. And I think for Dallas, they are the worst team in the league when the offense can either run or pass the ball. They can actually be okay when they know that you're in an obvious run situation or an obvious passing situation, but they cannot let them just be in 2nd and 3, 3rd and 1, because that's how they're going to get beat.
Yeah, look, over-under on this one at FanDuel right now is 54.5 points. I think you got to smash that over, man. This game's getting to at least 60, right? This game's getting to at least 60, I think. So it should be, I mean, a lot of highlights going to come out of it. You know what I mean? And one side or the other is going to come out happier than the other. But I think you're getting a lot of highlights. And, not a revenge game. But you know what? Always love going to Jerry's World, man. If Jerry Jones does one thing right, is take care of visiting media. So
there you go. I remember you were talking well about the food. I think it was two years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Check out David over at Locked On Commanders, and check out Marcus over at Locked On Cowboys, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. To round out the 4 p.m. slate of games, the Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals dealing with some injury situations right now. The Packers, they're looking to keep pace in that NFC North division. So Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers and Alex Clancy of Locked On Cardinals, they get you ready for game time.
All right, wrapping up week 7 crossover. I cannot believe it's week 7. Like, it's like you just kind of black out for the entire season. And it's week 15. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So keys to victory. We went a little bit more in depth last segment. So we've kind of hit on the majority of them here. I'm going to take one. The keys to victory, if it's Jacoby Brissett, which it most likely will be as we're recording this show, it's no restrictor plate, throw the ball. Like, that's it. And hopefully Marv plays, because he had a couple chunk games with Jacoby Brissett. Like, this is what we've been waiting for with Kyler. I wonder if it's just the 6-inch height difference. Like, I feel like Kyler gets shorter every year. Like, it's the weird. It's like a Benjamin Button thing. It's the weirdest thing. Like, we didn't have these issues year 1, year 2, year 3. I know defenses adjust obviously over the years, but like, I don't know. But throw the ball down the field. Trey McBride, Michael Wilson is a hot button name for football nerds. He was a really solid college football wide receiver. Yep. He's big. He catches everything. He's great with contested balls. He's great with his feet along the sidelines and in pay dirt. Just huck it, bro. Like, throw the ball 45 times again, and I'm in.
I think for that reason, the Green Bay Packers, the key, and I feel like a broken record every week I do this, but every week they play someone where I just feel like if they don't turn the ball over, they're going to win. And so not only do you want to win the turnover battle, I think it is more about offensively, just don't waste possessions. Like, if you go back to the Bengals game, the Packers were 14.5-point favorites. They win that game by 9, right? Well, they marched right down the field on the opening drive, and Jordan Love throws a bad interception in it wasn't quite the red zone, but it was field goal range. If he just doesn't do that, they win by 12, and it doesn't feel like the same. If you just you extrapolate these things, 12 doesn't feel that different than 14, right? They basically do what you win a game 30-18. People are pretty happy about that. It's that same sort of thing. Like, they left points on the board against Dallas when they get a field goal blocked or an extra point blocked that turns into 2 points. Right. It's those little things that let inferior opponents play to your level, and you then play down to their level, right? So don't turn the ball over because you don't waste possessions. This defense, we've talked about it. The first 3 quarters, it's good. And so if you can possess the ball, wear them down, by the time it gets to the fourth quarter with Josh Jacobs, if you haven't wasted possessions, you'll get to 24, 27 points. And the question is then, can Jacoby Brissett get to that same number of points, or has Micah Parsons taken his soul at some point over the course of, the 45 previous minutes? We'll see. But I feel like such an old school, like Joe football when I talk about the turnovers being the key, but it just, the more I watch football, the more I just kind of feel like in basketball, it's like, just shoot the ball better than the other team and you're going to win. Like, just don't turn the freaking ball over and you're probably going to win.
Yeah, I do that. A turnover battle every time, every show. So I feel it. Do you have Brandon Aubrey nightmares? More importantly, like,
no, Matt LaFleur does. I don't, because it's like he was the guy that Matt LaFleur was so freaking scared of. And I did a whole segment on, like, I can't believe how cowardly Matt LaFleur played the end because he was so freaking worried about Brandon Aubrey making a field goal in overtime. It's like, just score a touchdown, Matthew. What are you worried about? Go win the freaking game. God bless America.
He pulled the Matthew out. Jeez. It's Brandon Aubrey worth a first-round pick in Dynasty? I don't know. We're going sideways here. Okay. I know. It's close.
If I thought you had the button ready, I would have pulled it out, but I didn't think you had the button ready. I had to do it on my show. I had to drop one, Alex. I don't do it often, but I F-bombed it because I was just like, it was so bad, dude. Like, it was so pathetic to be afraid of multiple times in the game, to be afraid to not go for it on 4th and short in plus territory because you're like, well, they're just one first down away from being in Brandon Aubrey's field goal. Go in the game. What are we talking about?
He dropped the Matthew. He's not even close to a Matthew. He's more of a Matty than a Matthew. For me, like, one last victory here. The Cardinals have had a proclivity, I'm not even putting a time step. They've had a proclivity for their existence in not being able to stop tight ends. For me, Tucker Kraft is the scariest weapon that the Packers have, because not only is he their best red zone threat. I'm not going to go into X's and O's because I don't cover the Packers, but I draft him in fantasy every year because I know if he's healthy, he's going to be a top 5 guy because of the targets, the value of targets, the way that he can break away. He has good enough breakaway speed for a tight end to be kind of hybrid in that.
Underrated breakaway, like, speed for a tight end.
He had a huge touchdown catch. Oh, he had a 19, and he reached out. He's super athletic from last week. He had that touchdown, 19-yarder that he reached out for. Like, he's the one that scares me the most because he's kind of a tweener. Like, you kind of know what Matthew Golden's skill set is. Romeo Doubs can run the routes. He's, whatever. He's a Stephon Diggs light. Like, but you know what they can do. Tucker Kraft can do everything. So for me, stop the tight end and let the one thing that I will say to defend the Cardinals that is going overlooked a lot, even losing Garrett Williams. Will Johnson is the highest rated Pro Football Focus guy through week 6. It wasn't, or through week 5. So, like, he's really good at football. Okay. Yeah. Max Melton, right away. The jury's still out if he can be a bona fide CB1 light. He's more of a CB2. And then you've got Dadrian Taylor, Demerson, Budda Baker, and Jalen Thompson over the top with the 3 safety set that, like, they've got a good secondary. They have an opportunistic secondary, and the pass rush just needs to get home more in the second half than they have. And the Cardinals, like, if you told me this was a 1-score game at the end, I'm not sure. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. Like, I don't. If it is, we're having completely different conversations. If it's 30-10, we're having different conversations. And I just don't know when that ball is going to drop, if it will.
Let me ask you a question. Have they played a really good offense this year?
Have they played a really good offense this year? Seattle was really good through 3 quarters. Yep. But no. The Colts are a really good offense.
Look, I think the Colts are really good. Number 1 in all the nerd stats. They've scored, they scored 30 on Tampa. Like, I think you can make the case that they belong in there. But the Colts last week are probably the best offense that they've faced, just statistically.
Yeah.
And they scored 30. Now, when I was going through this, trying to make predictions and also, maybe for some personal interests that I have, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what does the score look like? And I was like, I kind of think the Cardinals are, even with Jacoby Brissett, going to be able to get to 20, 21, especially at home. Who's healthy at running back? I don't know, but I kind of also don't care. Like, I just feel like Drew Petzing he's a really good coach. I really like the way that offense can manufacture stuff. I just don't think they can get to like 24. And I think this is a game. The Packers have scored 27 points, I think 3 times this year. So it feels like cheating to say 27-21, but that's how it feels to me, 27-20. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. And so this is going to be a game where the Cardinals are going to lose a game where they feel like they probably could have won it and didn't. And that's just that's the difference between a really good team and a team that's trying to be really good.
Yeah. Groundhog's Day was one of my favorite movies growing up. So, why not re-implement Sonny and Cher at this point?
Check out Peter over at Locked On Packers and check out Alex over at Locked On Cardinals, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 4 p.m. slate of games. That's all we got there. But we have amazing primetime battles to get into here next on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. This episode is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. This is exactly where Rugiet's Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula. The effects can last up to 36 hours. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. And if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. Continuing on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. We talked about the 1 p.m. slate of games, talked about the 4 o'clock slate of games. Now we're into the primetime slate of games in Week 7, and we're starting off with the Atlanta Falcons and the San Francisco 49ers. What a statement the Falcons made against the Buffalo Bills in primetime last week. They're going to hope to do that against the 49ers team that, hey, Mac Jones has been doing some good work for them, and they've dealt with an injury situation really this entire year. It's been a really brutal one for them. So Brian Peacock of Locked On 49ers and Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons talk about which NFC team will pick up a primetime win.
Let's finish up this crossover edition, Locked On 49ers and Locked On Falcons. Brian Peacock here of Locked On 49ers with Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons. And before I ask your question on how you think this game is going to end, I want you to tell me about the Atlanta Falcons pass rush. And my guy, Matt Williamson, by the way, tune in, Peacock and Williamson, daily right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, breaking down the entire NFL. He loves to bring up this stat where over the last 5 years, the Steelers have the number 1 pass rush in the NFL. The Falcons have the worst. 10 years, Steelers won, Falcons worse. 20 years, Steelers won, Falcons worse, right? And it's like the Falcons like, enough of this. We're going to draft a first-round edge guy. We're going to trade up to get a second first-round edge guy. We're going to attack this thing from every angle possible. And then you show up against the best quarterback in the NFL in Josh Allen on Monday Night Football and pressure him more than he's ever been pressured. You get 4 sacks, and it wasn't even those first-round guys that were doing the sacking in that game. So talk to me about this Falcons pass rush and the number that they might do on Mac Jones, particularly if the 49ers are still not able to rush run the football in or in a lot of these 3rd and longs.
Yeah, your friend Matt Williamson. I still have the scars from every time he twists the knife, every time he puts out that stat, over the years. The Falcons were able really to get after Josh Allen with their blitz. That's really been the key to their new and improved pass rush. It's not one individual. It's not Nick Bosa out there lining up and having that one alpha dog pass rusher that is going to consistently win. It is kind of a pick your poison pass rush where they're able to scheme up, some of the twists and stunts that I know 49ers fans know Robert Saleh is capable of doing, but has always had that sort of alpha that he didn't necessarily have to sort of scheme it all up. In San Francisco, because of the presence of Nick Bosa and obviously Saleh and Falcons DC Jeff Ulbrich go back many years with their time in New York. And so the main difference is like Jeff Ulbrich is really leaning in on the blitz and the pressures and the simulated pressures and bringing Caden Ellis as a pass rusher, Divine Diablo, Jalen Walker, James Pierce, Leonard Floyd, none of these guys are sort of individual dominant presences, but they're all just like, whether it's stunts and twists, just being able to scheme up different ways to get those one-on-ones, get that unblocked pressure off the edge, and really did a number on the Bills. They weren't necessarily ready for it. And obviously the 49ers will be certainly more prepared for it, but the Falcons are just kind of have to hope that, it's just going to be so overwhelming that you won't be able to stop it.
And I mentioned the stat earlier with the pressure percentages, and the Falcons are, I think, 7th in the NFL in pressure percentage. They're number 2 in the NFL in sack percentage. The 49ers are second worst. So you got second worst pass rush against second best pass rush in a lot of ways in this game without Nick Bosa. 49ers were top 10 with Nick Bosa. So that's how big of a difference he's made as far as the pass rush goes. And so this is it's a big test for the San Francisco 49ers. And I got to be honest, I'm shocked, Aaron, that the 49ers are favored by 2.5 points. And I'm shocked that after 24 hours, it's still the same line. I thought there'd be so much money coming in on the Atlanta Falcons side, because on paper, the Atlanta Falcons are a better football team than the 49ers. And it's a much more easy to paint that picture of a Falcons win than a 49ers win, in my opinion, as good as competitive as the 49ers have stayed through all these injuries. So how do you see this one going? Painting pictures. What does the picture of the Falcons win Sunday night look like?
Yeah, I think FanDuel is like me. They don't trust the Falcons, given some of the things that have gone on over the years with the Falcons and being on that roller coaster. But yeah, I was too a little shocked to see the line open up at that point, and quite hasn't moved. But I think once we get an official update on Brock Purdy probably at the end of the week, that will probably be the thing that will sort of catalyze that one. But
which I don't think it matters that much. So jump on it now, because
I've been telling Locked On Falcons listeners to hammer that line now so that you can take advantage of that.
That was the time to do it, because they're both quarterbacks are banged up. So it's not like you're going to get 100% quarterback out there this weekend.
Yeah. So I feel like, again, going back to what I said, I have been let down by the Falcons coming off a big win before. And so I am prepared for that. But at the same time, look, I say you only live once. So I say this is the week where the Falcons get that monkey off the back. They make me a believer. They say, Aaron, you can trust us. And I think this is going to be a close game. It's going to come down to the final minutes. I know Eddie Pinheiro, who chose the 49ers over the Falcons as their kicker, has had a better season than the Falcons kicker and John Parker Romo. And so if it does come down to a field goal, that does favor the 49ers in a close football game. So it's kind of a toss-up game to me, but I do feel like the Falcons, if they can do what they have done the last 2 weeks against Washington, against Buffalo, and continue that, they should be able to take care of business against the 49ers.
I'm glad you brought up Eddie Pinheiro, because this has to become an Eddie Pinheiro game, because he turned down the Falcons to sign with the 49ers. Those were his two choices, and he chose the 49ers over the Atlanta Falcons. So, of course, it's going to come down to an Eddie Pinheiro kick, right? So I painted the picture of the 49ers, a team that should be an underdog in this game instead of being favored by 2.5. I think they can be competitive. Kyle Shanahan has shown an ability to scheme up an offense, and that's really the key to this one. Does George Kittle help in the run game? Can the 49ers march down the field, get the ball out quick so you can nullify that pass rush from the Falcons? And then I'm kind of been surprised that Robert Saleh hasn't done the old brick blitz heavy thing. The 49ers have blitzed the same or actually less after Nick Bosa, yet still got no pass rush. So I wonder if that's going to change at some point. And, a young quarterback in Michael Penix, you got to get pressure on him. And so I think that's one of the keys. We do have a couple minutes left here. Can you talk to me a little bit about Michael Penix? What are we seeing from him?
It's been pretty solid. Like that Carolina game you mentioned was rough, right?
He got straight up benched in that game, right?
No, it was just Raheem Morris. Like fourth quarter, he's basically game's over. We're putting the backup in. You saw him a couple of times with Kirk Cousins. And so that wasn't a bit, but it came immediately after he threw a really bad interception, so it looked like that. And then he bounced back the following week against Washington and played, I think, arguably his best game of his career. And didn't quite play at the elite level last week against Buffalo, but was really just kind of just point guard. Give the ball to Bijan, give the ball to Drake London, and let them take care of business. And that's kind of what you want with your young quarterback. And so I think he's progressing at a steady rate. We'll see how he handles this road matchup. So far, This season, he hasn't been stellar on the road. He was fine against Minnesota, but that game was really just hand the ball off to the running game and just let them cook, as opposed to the quarterback going out there and winning. So this will be a great opportunity to see him tested in a hostile environment against this 49ers team.
Yeah, and sneaky familiar opponents too. You mentioned Ulbrich and Robert Saleh connection, and then you've got the Shanahan McVay tree as well. And so I don't think there's going to be a lot of secrets in what these teams are trying to do on Sunday when the Falcons meet the 49ers at Levi's Stadium. Primetime, back-to-back primetime affairs for the Atlanta Falcons. So okay, that's what kind of team this is. The Atlanta Falcons. This is a primetime football team. Can they keep the winning streak going? It's going to be a lot of fun.
Check out Brian over at Locked On 49ers and check out Aaron over at Locked On Falcons, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. To open up the Monday night football action here in week number 7, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions, 2 NFC powerhouses going at it head-to-head. Baker Mayfield, he is incredible. Jared Goff and that Lions team, they're hitting on all cylinders right now, too. You have James Yarko of Locked On Bucks, Matt Derry of Locked On Lions, talking about everything you need to know leading up to game time.
Monday Night Football for the Lions and Tampa Bay Bucks. 5-1 Bucks, 4-2 Lions. It's been a couple of years since the Dan Campbell-led team has lost 2 in a row. They seem to always bounce back. Matt Derry, Locked On Lions. James Yarko, Locked On Bucks. How do the Bucks do it, James? How do they come to Ford Field? Look, they did it last year, and we know how they did it. They just made more plays down the stretch of that game. But how do they do it again this year?
Yeah, well, and a big part of that game was the red zone defense, right? The Lions went 1 for 7 in the red zone in that game. That's going to be a huge part of it this time around. The defense, you might have to go into that bend, don't break, which creates lots of extra gray hairs and Bucks fans pulling their hair out of their head. But that might be the best way to approach. If you can do what you did against the 49ers, right? Where they moved the ball but had to keep settling for field goals while the Bucks were getting touchdowns. That's kind of the key, right? But offensively, you have to find a way to take advantage of this weakened secondary. Mike Evans, no Mike Evans, it doesn't matter. You're going to have opportunities out there for your guys. You mentioned Cade Otton. That's kind of going to be the big question mark that we're not sure about, right? Is Otton going to be sitting back and helping block like he had to do basically the first month of the season? Or is he going to be out there being a weapon in the passing game as he's been over the course of the last couple of weeks? But this is one of those games. I mentioned it last week. I'm going to say it again this week. You have to dink and dunk them to death. You have to have 12, 14, 16 play scoring drives, because if you can keep racking up those first downs and just keep chipping away, once you get into that red zone, that's where the Lions are weakest. They're 24th in the NFL in red zone efficiency. They are 28th in goal to go efficiency. So you just have to find a way to extend those drives, because as the Lions get backed up, they start to break. And that's going to be the big thing.
Well, I'll say this too. It would be nice. And the Lions defense has gotten better. And again, right now, it's just a mash unit back there. Thomas Harper playing safety. A lot of people don't even know who that is. Rock Yassin, who was pretty much the last DB on the roster, or one of them, is going to play a big role, whether it's at safety, at corner. I don't think they even know. But one thing that the Lions have not done well is first drive of the game for the opponent, whether it's the opening drive or they get the ball second. They have not stopped anybody. They make adjustments afterwards, but first drive defense, I think every game but one, they've allowed a touchdown. It makes absolutely no sense. Bears did it, and then the Lions made adjustments, and that was it. I know a lot of those first drives are scripted. It'd be nice to see the Lions, and last week they won the toss, took the football, went right down the field, and should have had, like you said, a touchdown. Kind of got robbed by the officials. But in this game, how about a stop early just to get some momentum, get the crowd into it? That crowd can really play a factor at Ford Field, a Monday night game. It seems like forever since the Lions have been home. That will be huge. But getting that stop, I know it's one drive, but if they get a 3 and out, or at least make the Bucks punt early, might change the forecast of the game a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir, because as you were saying that, all the Locked On Bucks listeners are going, yep, that sounds like Tampa. So I think this game's starting off 7-7. Like right out of the gate, let's just put 7-7 up on the scoreboard, and that's where we're going to start this one, because the Bucks have struggled immensely at getting first drive stops. In fact, this team in as a whole has struggled to start fast. The offense has punted more often than not on their opening drive. One of those punts got blocked and returned for a touchdown to open a game. So yeah, that is going to be huge. It might even be what decides the game. Whichever team gets that first drive stop, that might be who ends up winning this game, because both teams just basically say, go ahead, let's make this interesting. Go ahead, score on your opening drive, and then we're going to actually start playing.
That's wild. It's funny. There's a lot of similarities here with both clubs, and obviously they've seen each other a ton. One other thing too on Detroit, David Montgomery only had 4 carries Sunday night, and it's been asked a couple of times of Dan Campbell this week about getting David Montgomery going again, because 2 weeks ago in Cincinnati, he was the star of the show. He went home. It was a great story, playing in front of friends and family and his sister in that story, but only 4 carries the other night. And look, he averaged 6 yards a carry, but they've got to, if Montgomery can carry that pile a little bit, you guys have such a great interior of the D line, but if a 3-yard carry can be a 4 or 5 yarder and they just establish the run and get back to kind of that pounding mentality that the Lions have with their O-line, I think they'll be in good shape. And you mentioned before about the Bucs run defense, which is always good. That's a great matchup to watch too.
Yeah, well, and the other interesting thing that I had somebody mention on my last show that I really wasn't thinking about is Casey Rogers being on this Detroit Lions staff. He knows Todd Bowles as well as anyone, which makes the chess match between these two teams that much more interesting. But yeah, I think both of these teams they're going to have to find a way to get something going on the ground. The Bucs rush defense is basically top 5 across the board. The Lions run defense is not bad. It's not bad at all. And the Bucs are one of the worst teams in the NFL in yards before contact. That's a huge thing, where they're just getting swallowed up at the line. Now, Rachaad White, Sean Tucker, Bucky Irving, when he was healthy, they were able to find ways to, escape and turn a negative into a positive. But, I would say between the two teams, obviously Detroit has the advantage at the running back position compared to the Bucs, with Bucky Irving being sidelined.
Forgot about Mr. October, Sean Tucker. He always seems to find a way to get to not playing much, then gets an opportunity, scores a touchdown. Pride of Syracuse. It's good to see him in the end zone the other day.
Yeah, he's made the most of the opportunities that he's gotten. I would have expected more opportunities for him with Bucky Irving being sidelined, but to be fair, Rachaad White has been playing some fantastic football, both, in the run game, but then of course he's always been solid as a pass catching back and picking up those blitzes and buying Baker some time. So it's one of those things. The Bucs just signed another running back to their practice squad. They had to elevate Owen Wright last week because Josh Williams suffered a concussion. So the running backs are a hot mess outside of Rachaad and Sean Tucker. So it'll be interesting to see which one of these two teams really gets things going on the ground. Jahmyr Gibbs is a home run threat no matter where they are on the field. So that's something that is going to be a concern coming into this one.
James, great to see you, and let's have some fun Monday night.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Now, you mentioned it earlier, the line is 5.5 for this game, and it's way too early for us to do predictions, right?
I agree.
Which way are you kind of leaning right now?
I'm leaning Can I do the old, there's a talk show host here in Detroit, a legend, Mike Stone. I could do an old Stoney bit and say, Lions win, Bucks cover. Like a 24-21 type of thing or something like that, where the Lions get the dub, but maybe don't cover the 5.5. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning, at the very least, the Bucks cover. I will say that. It's so hard to beat Detroit coming off of a loss, but there's something special about this team, Matt. There really, really is. And I would say my caveat here is if Mike Evans plays and the Bucks get either Zion McCollum or Benjamin Morrison back for this game, so that you're not having to start Kendall Vildor. Shout out to him, though. Heck of a game against the Niners. Got an interception.
That's a name Lion fans do not want to hear.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
they do now. They do want to hear it. They want him out there for the Bucs.
Well, he's been making plays the last couple of weeks, but I would say if you get Evans and either McCollum or Morrison back in this game, the Bucs are going to pull off the upset.
Check out James over at Locked On Bucks and check out Matt over at Locked On Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Last but not least, the Texans and the Seahawks will play late to round out the Monday night doubleheader here. Texans coming off of their bye week, but picked up a big win against the Baltimore Ravens before that. And the Seahawks, they got back on track against the Jacksonville Jaguars in week number 6. So you got John Hickman of Locked On Texans. You got Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks. They'll talk about which team will come out on top.
Welcome back to Crossover Thursday. Locked On Seahawks, Locked On Texans. I'm your host, Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks. He's John Hickman, Locked On Texans. We've got a massive Monday night matchup coming up. Seahawks hosting the Texans at Lumen Field. Seattle looking to improve to 5-2. Texans looking to get back to the 500 mark and continue their current 2-game winning streak. John, let's break down how this is going to happen for the Texans. If they are going to get that third straight win and get back to the 500 mark, in your crystal ball of sorts, what do you foresee having to happen for Houston to make this long trek up to the Emerald City and be able to come out with a win in prime time?
Before I answer that question, can I ask you one?
Sure.
Can you give my Texan listeners some insight on Seattle's linebacker core? And on the flip side, how dangerous is that tight end unit for you guys right now?
Linebacker has been a position that has kind of been away from Ernest Jones. Ernest Jones has been great most of this year. He had one kind of off game against Tampa Bay, but he has been a Pro Bowl caliber player pretty much the entire season. Otherwise, they've gone to Drake Thomas more at the other linebacker spot. Tyrese Knight from UTEP had a really good rookie year, and then he missed all of training camp in the preseason, and he just hasn't looked right. So he's continued to lose reps to Drake Thomas, who had a great game against Jacksonville this past weekend. So that's kind of been a position that some teams have been circling a little bit. Can we take advantage of the second linebacker there, whoever is in the lineup? Meanwhile, the tight ends have been great. AJ Barner's becoming a star. He's got 4 touchdowns already this year. Just had a 61-yard catch that pretty much put the dagger in Jacksonville on Sunday. So they're feeling really good about this reworked tight end group with him out there. Elijah Arroyo still waiting for him to have a game that he pops, but he's made some plays. And Eric Saubert's been a really good veteran addition for them that's gotten after it in the blocking game. So tight end's been a strength for this offense all year, particularly when they're in 12 personnel.
Yeah, you guys run, I think, 12 personnel higher than anybody else in the league. But 12
and they're the most
11
efficient EPA-wise, too.
Yeah, man, 12 and 11 personnel has been amazing for you guys. EPA for the 12 personnel has been great, better than anybody in the league. So keys to victory for the Houston Texans, man. I honestly believe the biggest key is Jackson Smith and Jigma cannot win this game. Now, the last 2 games, what he's combined for almost 270 yards, 2 TDs, something along those lines. He cannot be the reason that Houston gets behind 10 points, because the issue with that is while Houston was able to score 35 points in their last 2 games combined, between the last 2 games per game, the offense still has its question marks, and they took on defenses that were not of the caliber of Seattle's defense. So that's number one. I think that the game plan around stopping Jackson Smith and Jigma, making everybody else beat Houston, I am wondering how they're going to go about that. Some people want to see Stingley travel. I'm like, hey, maybe they should double him with Kamari with a safety over the top. Secondly, they can't get beat with them play actions. They got to be where they got to be, and they got to be there consistently, because you guys, I have the numbers here, but Sam Darnold has been extremely efficient and deadly on play action passes this year. And those play action passes have led to explosive plays down the field. I think 15.4 yards per attempt, 4 or 5 TDs on the year of his 9 TDs. So I'm looking at, okay, Houston needs to be in those spots, and they cannot lose containment a lot. If they do that, I think Houston has a very good job of just containing that offense defensively, keeping the game low, and always giving your team an opportunity offensively to go out there and score points. Now for Seattle, I want to ask you, what would be your keys to victory for Seattle to win on Monday.
First thing, they got to keep Sam Darnold upright. They got to continue doing a good job of protecting him. Most of the games this year, I mean, he's only had one game he's been sacked more than one time the entire season. The offensive line's been part of that, him getting the ball out quickly. You can't let Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, and that defensive line change the tune of this game by dominating your offensive line. They've got to be able to do that. And I think you got to keep Houston honest with the run game. Like, part of the thing is, even in the games that Seattle has not necessarily ran well, they've ran effectively enough that it has forced teams to be able to have to bring up an extra guy in the box, and it's created those opportunities to win downfield. Can you force Houston into that position, particularly at home? And on the defensive side of the football, it is all about that interior pressure, because CJ Stroud, when things have gone awry for him in his NFL career, it's been because that O-line inside out has not been able to keep him protected. If Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed and company can make life tough for him early, I'm confident Seattle can slow down the run game. But if you can get that interior pressure, Stroud, he might get forced into some throws downfield, just trying to make plays happen. And I think the secondary is going to be healthier this week. This is an opportunistic group that when the ball is thrown up and it's into pressure and into coverage, they will make plays in the football, but they have to be able to get him off his feet and out of rhythm in the pocket, particularly with that interior pressure. If they can't do that, we saw what happened a couple weeks ago against Tampa Bay. I think that Houston can do some similar things. I don't think they have as much offensive juice, but they can do similar things if there isn't a pass rush to speak of. So I'm looking at the interior in particular. Go feed off the crowd and take advantage of that interior Houston line and get after CJ Stroud. If they can do that, I think they got a really good chance to win this one. Let's talk game predictions real quick. I don't give my score predictions until our Friday show, but Seahawks are now 3.5-point favorites, according to our friends over at FanDuel. How are you gauging this game from a spread perspective coming in on where the Texans stand making this road trip to Seattle?
Corbin, I'm torn. I'm really torn. Like I found some chinks in the armor of Seattle, and I'm like, okay, Houston has done a good job defensively, being able to contain some of these things. Like the Kubiak tree is, that based in the Shanahan tree, and the Shanahan tree quarterback that they played this year was Matthew Stafford. He went 9 for 9 for 90 yards and 1 TD on play action. But everybody else wasn't able to kind of sell that play action and hurt Houston this year, right? And so I'm worried about that. I'm worried about how they'll be able to continue to be efficient when they do get to the red zone. That's been an issue for Houston throughout the year. I have a hard time picking Houston to win this game. I really do. Now, I think this game will be able to set Houston up to be better down the stretch, but Houston needs a dub now. I still have to go with Seattle. Texas fans have kind of been killing me, calling me all kind of names, but if I'm living in reality, I think Seattle is a better team.
For me, I like the word torn because I kind of feel like I did last week with the Jags game going to Jacksonville. Like I was having it felt like a toss-up to me. Because until I see this Seahawks team consistently play well at home, I have a really hard time jumping into that pool. Like, you know what? I have confidence they're going to win this game. At the same time, I think they cover this 3.5. And the big reason why I feel that way going into this game, I just think that the fact that Seattle's defense has been as good, other than the Tampa Bay game, as good as they've been with all the guys that have been out of the lineup, for them to continue doing what they're doing. And I expect they are going to be a lot healthier going into this game. I will be really surprised if Devin Witherspoon and Julian Love are not playing on Monday night. I expect them. We don't have injury reports yet because the first practices are coming on mid-afternoon on Thursday. But I expect to see those guys out there on Monday night. I think you get those players back. Witherspoon going against Christian Kirk, I think that it dramatically improves the slot play that the Seahawks have going against Houston. Reek Woolen has the size to go against Nico Collins. Josh Job's been really good. I feel like Nick Emanwari being the wild card here, you could play him in the slot, and he can do all kinds of fun stuff. Like, if they can get that whole band together on Monday night, I feel like I agree with you that Seattle just, to me, has the better team. I think they have the better roster, and I expect it's going to be close. I'm not saying this is going to be a 15, 20-point game, but I think Seattle covers that 3.5. But I do think it's going to be it'll be a close. I think it'll be an exciting Monday night game.
Yeah, I think so too. Here's the thing about Houston, though, man. They ain't punks. They're not scary, right? They have to figure out their way and identity in the first 3 weeks. And they opened up against the Rams, playoff team last year. The Bucks, number 1 offense in the league last year, playoff team, NFC South Division winners. And then they go against the Jags team, who they lose against that team. But that's a very good team this year. That ain't the Jags we thought they were going to be. So they played 3 very good teams to open up their year. And you look at each game that they lost, it's kind of like, man, one mistake and instead of 0-3, you're 3-0. This is still a very good team trying to find their way. But when you try to find your way, you run up against a roadblock like Seattle that has their way, it's hard to overcome it. I think it's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I'm really curious. Yeah, again, I love the word torn because that is how I feel. There's been a few games this year that, like New Orleans, I felt very confident going into that game, obviously. But this is one of those games that feels like one or two things could swing it to one sideline or the other. Really close one coming up, and Houston is a better team than the record indicates. I totally agree with that. So I can see this going either way. I'm really excited to dive deeper into this with a real score prediction because I'm not fully certain on that just yet. But this is a game that I could see going both ways.
Check out Corbin over at Locked On Seahawks. Check out John over at Locked On Texans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So I have you here today on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy your football. Should be a great jam-packed slate of games for week number 7. Of course, all of our experts across the Locked On Podcast Network will have you covered post-game and throughout the week, talking about everything to come from these week 7 games. So be sure you check out everything we have in store here. We'll be back here soon on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. We'll talk to you next time.